I'll hang for a bit.
Okay, we're live. So now everyone can see us. I'm a little bit late. When I was telling everybody in the chat, actually, I didn't tell you this, Dan, before actually I hopped on. But when I was telling everybody in the chat that I was like, I'm getting a snack, what I meant was I'm getting a snack and I'm getting some wine, which is appropriate because the time that I spoke with John prior to this debate, I was also drinking wine, which is very funny.
And everyone should go back and watch that segment of stream if you get a chance, because it was entertaining.
Yeah, and well, we've talked crap about that whole deal for CRISPR wants to hop in. Yeah, you know what? We can do an open mic. I've never done an open mic, but we can do that. I'm gonna put the thingy in the side chat, but I don't have the expensive dealie because I'm not made of money. So you guys, I might have to just let the first couple people in and see how it goes. Yeah, how'd you think it went? Dan?
So okay, so I thought it was on the, so it started with the ID side opening, which I thought was extremely predictable. It was irreducible complexity, life is a code, blah 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 blah. You can't get it through naturalistic processes. Okay, I thought your opening was extremely well targeted, because it cut off a set of arguments that we knew were coming, right? So you're talking about, oh my God, everything's
sorry.
all over the place.
I'm adding.
So you're talking about like, first of all, I want to compliment your use of the phrase "young Earth intelligent design," which is great and incisive and just like twisting the knife just the appropriate amount, because it describes precisely what we're dealing with. It's young Earth creationism attempting to put a scientific facade on its presentation. So that's exactly what it is.
The thing is, it's not even that. It's not dressing up intelligent design, or it's not dressing up young Earth creationism. It's dressing down intelligent design. It's that King of the Hill quote where it's like, you're not making young Earth creationism better. You're just making ID worse by linking those.
Right. It's like, let's take Behe, as simplistic as his 1996 model is, and let's simplify it some more. And framing it that way allows you to go into, okay, young Earth needs to have a global flood, heat problem. Don't tell me there's a solution to the heat problem, because your own people, the right team, the creationist crack team that has tried to address the heat problem, has admitted there's no solution to the heat problem without exotic solutions, which is to say miracles.
We love the miracle talk.
Right. And then ENCODE, don't tell me there's no junk DNA. ENCODE has said junk DNA not only exists, but there's a lot of it. And then also John's opening was like, I don't want to talk about theory. I want to talk about concrete things, but also these evolutionists are all about talking about experiments. Yeah, that's the point. So then you go to, mouse knockouts and how much of the genome is actually functional. Well, if you stretch it, maybe 25%, maybe.
Generous.
That's what the best data we have say. Generously, 25%, absolute ceiling. Now, if you want to argue that humans are so much more complex and so different from mice that for whatever reason the vast majority of the human genome has to be functional, even though the mouse genome, we know from knockout experiments, mostly isn't, you know what? Go ahead, make that argument, be my guest, but nobody has to take you seriously, because that's just not a serious argument.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Welcome everyone else. Dan and I are just going back and forth. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Who wants to talk?
In fact, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity to say goodnight. Erika,
no problem.
Fantastic job. Good to see everybody else, but I'm just gonna enjoy the rest of the conversation from here. Have a great night, everybody.
Yeah, no problem.
Are you avoiding me, Dan?
I'm sorry, Speed. We should talk soon. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Why are you
later?
You're always saying good night.
Yeah, he really always is. All right, next in line is Leo. So Leo is gone, but he's here. So Beowulf, hello. Travis, hello. Christopher, hello. And Speed, hello. And hi, Leo. Now he's here. How'd you guys think it went? Tell me. I'm all ears.
Oof. I'm gonna be completely honest.
Please do.
Yeah. one point, I think I may have fallen asleep.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's fine. I don't blame you for that, because the thing is that it's like so much of it felt kind of all over the place to me, like concept wise, like it was me and Otangelo having a conversation, and then John was kind of having a talk with Sai, and it was just kind of like weird matchups. I don't blame you for that. No problem.
It might just be me, but I'm not an enormous fan of the 4 debaters setup.
Yeah.
I don't like it very
debates.
much either. It's fun because I got to chat with Sai, and I like Sai, but man, that's why I said it at the end. I was like, listen, John, I am more than happy to have this conversation with just the two of us. I would love nothing more. That would make my day. But I actually think he only agreed to come on because he wanted to talk with Sai and try to get Sai to be like, yeah, DNA is a code, which like, yeah, some people think it's a code, some people don't. That's been my position since square one.
I just wanted to say, let everybody give their thoughts on the debate, because if I may, I'm going to need about 5 minutes because there are some actual specific points I really wanted to cover. Give me about 2 minutes, though, because I am going to move downstairs.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
I had a lot of trouble finding any arguments by Otangelo or John to seize on and counter. It's just so all he's got is this code thing. Well, 1.3% of the DNA is a code. Okay, fine. Literally a code. I don't know what he means by that. I don't know why he wants to say literally, because if you say literally, then I got to go look at the dictionary definition, and it says a code is a cipher so that people can transmit secret messages, right? And it's literally not that, because it's not a secret. But is it a code? Fine. 1.3% of it is. The rest of it has nothing to do with code. And Otangelo, his just all he's got is this complexity argument, which just drones on forever. These guys frustrate me in that they're constantly challenging me to come back at them, but I can't find anything to come back at.
It's like it's like wrestling a guy covered in oil. Like
Right.
you're trying
or
wrestling
a ninja who you can't really see or find.
Yeah.
And that's weird. But now John in the after show, he was just going on about how unfair it is for us to say that they need a model for intelligent design.
Oh, he's mad, dude. He's so mad about that.
But yeah, and he did it in the debate too. But it's interesting that they get mad about that, yet they're constantly saying you have to explain how abiogenesis created the ribosome, over and over again. And I mean, it's just like the double standard just completely goes over their head. I mean, oh my God, I don't know. We did about a 2-hour talk about the philosophy and the logic of naturalism and science and what we're doing with evolution earlier today on my channel. But you might check that out. I thought we had a really good talk. There's a philosopher there named Danny, and he is really good. So anyway, I don't know. It's frustrating. I don't. That was kind of a sleepy debate. Except for some of the side parts and some of your parts. So,
well, yeah. I mean, to add to that very briefly, like that was the part that kind of, if you want to go with the rhetoric style, like the second that when I mentioned it the first time with Otangelo, like you guys don't have a model, nothing from Otangelo and John. I bring it up the second time, nothing from Otangelo and John. Bring it up the third time, and the whole point being emphasizing that there isn't this model. There's not.
They should mute them until they say one. Like at what point is there a debate? Like there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, and therein lies the problem, right? Because what we really want to do is in science, we're trying to create these models so we can make these predictions, so we can learn more about the natural world. And it's like, if your model isn't a model and it doesn't have any predictions, then it doesn't say anything. It doesn't.
It's literally just a post hoc rationalization to make like their religion true, and like I don't really think like the creation debates matter that much, because like this is a downstream belief of like a deeper core belief. Hi. By the way, I'm Travis. I have been in the street epistemology community for a while.
Cool.
Okay.
And I'm also like a big Redditor, and I run a bunch of subreddits like Keto Science and
cool.
What are the other ones? I don't know, a bunch of nutrition ones, and then like religion ones. The Great Project is one. It's like a deconversion subreddit, and street epistemology is another one. But yeah, so I would rather like steer the conversation if I was to talk to them like into what is their fundamental like disagreement, where you know like the one fact that they need to stay true in order to maintain their belief. And if you can work your way back, I think it would eventually hit faith, and it's like,
yeah, I think that's fair.
You know, right? And I love going on Reddit, and there's an art creation subreddit. It's you can't post in there, right? It's like locked down. It's private.
Travis, have you ever been on the debate evolution sub? Because myself and Creation Myths in the side chat are both mods there.
I'm a Demonocracy. I comment there sometimes and post.
Sick.
What's your username in there?
Oh, it's just Gutsick Gibbon. I swapped that over. I'm trying to capitalize on all that all that hard work on Reddit.
Yeah, I mean, I have multiple usernames across my social media that are broken.
Yeah. You gotta keep it consistent. All right, Leo or CRISPR, how do you guys think it went? Just to kind of move.
I'll let CRISPR go before me, because like I said, I don't have a super long rant, but I did have a few points that I wanted to touch.
Well, oh wait, I think I see my icon lighting up, so I must have volume.
Yep,
Yeah,
we can hear you.
You're good.
There's no echo, right?
No.
No, it's all good.
Great. Okay, so I always try to use the voice meter so that I can have push to talk universally, and then sometimes the settings get messed up and I forget what I'm doing. Anyway, yeah, I think you did great. I really like the fact that you had Sai there with you, because he provides this nice counterpoint that illustrates the argument that I always like to make, which is that it's not a debate between religious and non-religious.
Yep.
It's a debate between reasonable and unreasonable. And which is kind of ironic, because how do you debate somebody who's unreasonable? But you don't debate for the people you're talking to, you do it for the audience, so it's fine.
Right.
And so yeah, no, I think it was great. You know, to an extent, there's always this thing where you frame a debate in a certain way. You know, you frame it as evolution versus intelligent design, and so is it fair to go into young Earth creationism? Well, I think it is, because they are young Earth creationists, but at the same time they haven't brought it up, so I don't know, it's kind of a tricky thing. But you prepare the segment you prepare, so like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like you have to create this little opening statement, and you're like, I have no idea which direction this is gonna fly down. Like it could be, you know, any of my wildest dreams. And oh my God, when John started bringing up human and chimpanzee differences, I was like, make my day, John, make my day. Let's have that conversation right now. And then James was like, oh, sorry, we have to stop. And all I got to do was rattle off of an equation. But before we go to Leo real quick, we've got some super chats, which I never get super chats. I mean, I do sometimes, but they're mostly from Ian Chen. So I'm going to.
we got some stupid horror energy. So
yeah,
cool.
Chat. So I'm gonna read those, because that's
making money.
Yeah, that sweet money.
I love her name.
Overlander says John's toxicity pollutes every discussion. True, actually. I said it a couple of times, like with Sai in our pre-Zoom, and I was like, listen, he's gonna get unpalatable, because that's how John rolls. He's not a nice guy.
Yeah,
no, he's not.
I find it. It's not like he's like the worst, like biggest asshole in the entire world, but sometimes he's like, man, you said you were gonna stop talking like 3 minutes ago. Can you please just? He's
such a smart.
He's like on the FBI's most wanted list, but we're not sure if he's number one.
He's in the running. He's in the running. So.
No,
he's rising through the ranks.
I said this to Dan at the beginning, but I was very tickled when John was like, I'm literally asking Sygart the PhD, and I wanted to be like, John, I have more degrees than you. Like, you really want to play that game with someone else? Like, throwing your degrees around is dumb anyways. That's why Sai doesn't do it. But throwing someone else's degrees around is a different level of dumb. So I was
No,
I was floored by that.
He was like,
I
"Hey,
mean, the major
the guy on
thing
the opposite team agrees with me." So there.
Exactly. Bren for $17. Thank you. That's a huge donation. They say your prediction slide was money. Baby, that's because I do the research. I've seen enough of Otangelo. I've seen enough of John Maddox. I knew that stuff was coming at me. And I was like, it's going to, I should have put something else in there that I almost put. And then I was like, maybe that's too mean. But I almost put at the end, I was like, we will get no further than these two statements. Because that's what happened. We didn't get any further than just DNA's a code, thus there's a coder. Irreducibly complex things are a thing, thus intelligent design, which was really annoying. Sigil Fredo Sarabia for $2, $1.50. Thank you, just the donation. Jesse Schnodel, thank you. Erika's calming voice is exactly what I need after dealing with the most infuriating interlocutor in the live chat of the debate stream. Was it Neffy? Was it Neffy or was it maybe Redefine Living? Redefine Living was active in the chat today.
Yeah, I had a bit of an exchange with him, and then he abandoned it like he has the last 3 exchanges we've had because
The wall comes up.
Yeah, the live chat that entire time was flying, man.
Yeah, dude. Sometimes the MDD live chat can get a little intense and whatever. Like intense can be good, but it can also be really dumb.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really dumb that I was seeing in the side chat kind of towards the end with I don't know.
At first I started maybe eventually, because I was kind of contributing to it at first, and eventually I was like, maybe I should just give up.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. It's really sunk cost with those side chats, and eventually you reach the point where you're like, I'm getting nothing out of this, and I've wasted an hour and a half arguing with someone who they're an impenetrable fortress of sometimes there's some ignorance going on there, but sometimes people are just uninformed, and I don't know. Giving the benefit of the doubt sometimes leads to good conversations, and then sometimes it leads to Nephilim free, which is just
yeah.
stupid. Horror Energy for $5 says Sygart was too much of a teleologist for my taste. It was almost a 3-on-1. Yeah, I felt that way a couple of times, but ultimately Cy was kind of just like, it's.
Yeah, the thing.
To be fair to
You
him,
know what? I'll wait till I
to
get
be
my.
fair to him, the only time that really happened is when it moved on to abiogenesis for a little bit.
Yep.
He was like, yeah, but whatever, man. That's not what this is about.
Well, and the thing is I tried to be very clear when I was like, look, I don't know what John and Otangelo's deal is, where they're saying it's solved. They're teaching it to the kids in schools. It's not legit. They're just malding over this. And it's like, dude, no one is saying it's solved. Who is saying it's solved? The abio stuff is in the works, yes. But as I mentioned in my opening, it's like, abio could be one thing or another thing, and it doesn't change the fact that evolution by natural selection happens. The Earth is old, and we're all apes, and it's like that's fine.
Yeah,
We're going to die, and that's it.
Yeah, whenever I talk to people and they start talking about abio, I'm like, man, that's barely even biology. I'm not a chemist, man.
Yeah.
I do taxonomy basically. Yeah, I don't know anything about chemistry.
No, I'm totally with you. Yeah, I prepped like crazy for this debate because I was like, it's going to be abio bust or abio or bust. It's going to be abio or bust. And I had to relearn all the chem stuff. And I was like, I'm going to do all this chem stuff. And then there's going to be no chem talk. Or I'm just going to forget it all. And then both of those things happen.
I got to say, I was sort of disappointed that that John didn't bring up genetic entropy at all.
You know what? There's a very specific reason. He knows he would get hit over the head with a giant, comically sized hammer if he tried to bring up genetic entropy, because who the only person that's bringing up genetic entropy is John Sanford and Standing for Truth. Which, that's fine, but if you have to change okay, for those of you in the chat who may not know, although if you're here, you probably do. Genetic entropy is this idea that creationists have put forward. It's a creationist reskin of the concept of error catastrophe. And it's this idea that everything is progressively getting worse due to the accumulation of these near neutral deleterious mutations. And there are a couple of huge problems with it, but the big one is that in order to get genetic entropy to work, they have to completely change the definition of fitness to mean this nebulous concept of being strong or fast or smart instead of being reproductively fit for your environment. And
It
that's
barely works even then.
yeah, and it barely works even then. And even then, the problems come in where it's like, what do you mean when you say the accumulation of near neutral deleterious mutations? Because fitness acts on everything.
Standing and
Is that like some fall of mankind sin thing?
Bingo.
That causes the
Bingo.
evolution? Because that's the only.
but their idea is based on like, okay, if you had a gene and there's a mutation, and then there's like, they think of it as like a piece of rust, and there's another mutation and another mutation, and somehow this builds up, and when it builds up to a certain level, suddenly it becomes a problem or something for the species.
Yeah, it sounds like they're saying eventually it's just natural selection is going to stop working.
Yep.
And like,
Yeah, and
No, it's not that. It's
go ahead, Chris.
I mean, I might be putting my foot in the mouth,
So
but you know.
the issue is that basically the idea behind genetic entropy is that you've got a selection threshold under which the selection coefficients are not allowing efficient selection, and so drift dominates over selection.
Yeah,
We understood what you said, CRISPR, but your mic is a little bit robot.
weak.
We can understand you. We can still hear you, but there is a little bit of robotiness to it.
If you want to elicit
Is
any interruptions, you want to
Is
up
it the volume or
yeah, your volume
it's
is really
pretty low.
bad, CRISPR. It hurts my
It's
head.
like
to
you're
try to-
using the wrong microphone.
It kind of sounds like something's not plugged in all the way, honestly.
how about that? Is that
No.
Not
Well,
really.
it's different, but
It was a little louder. I
a
think.
little
Yeah.
bit better? I'm just trying to adjust it with the built-in things. I don't know why, but for some
Yeah.
reason StreamYards really does not want to take the volume adjustments that I'm feeding through it, because like I hear my mic as quite loud, because I always have listen on my mic, so I know what the sound should be like. You get used to it after a few minutes.
Might I offer a suggestion?
unplug.
Sure.
Well, and this I don't know how this would
Plug
fix
back
a
in.
little bit of staticiness, but at the bottom of your screen, you should see a mute, stop cam, and then a cam/mic button with a little gear thing there. If you click that, and then you go to audio, at the bottom there, it says mic volume. Try turning that up as high as it will go if it's not already there.
It is. So
Okay.
Again, the thing is that the volume that is going through the computer is fine. The volume that StreamYards is receiving is low, and I have no idea why that is. Because like I can hear how loud my mic is receiving and how clearly my mic is receiving. It's fine. But like I can also see how big the little circle around my icon is when I talk.
Yeah.
And that's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
It definitely sounds like a StreamYard problem.
Yeah, that's
It wouldn't
really
surprise
it's
me.
weird it's weird that's not everyone else though. Maybe we can just listen hard for when you're chatting. Wait,
Yeah.
okay. Cloud of Time says it's
We
not.
can
a
keep
volume
an eye
issue.
on your little ring thing.
Cloud of Time says disconnect and reconnect.
Yeah, that would probably work.
Okay, he's doing it. Also, we have some folks kind of waiting in the sidelines. So if you feel like you're not like chilling in the chat, loving it, you maybe just like let other folks in. If you're loving it, you can stay. Obviously, I'm bad at rotating people.
Boomer o'clock.
I'm just waiting for my roughly 5 minutes,
Yes,
but I
yes.
didn't want to interrupt any conversations that we're taking.
No, please. The you know what, Leo? Yeah, go ahead. You know what? You go.
So
ahead.
let me wet the whistle here before I get blowing. Don't take that the wrong way. You had to get that laugh in there.
Yeah, it's low hanging fruit.
You got me going. Anyway, the first thing I wanted to say is I noticed not Otangelo so much. He was quieter than he normally would have been, but he was paired with John, so I figured that was going to happen. The one thing I noticed about John is it seemed that he was trying to get, not to get Sygart on his side, but to have a discussion with specifically Cy on specifically the areas they agreed, because it seemed to me he felt uncomfortable putting himself in a position where he disagreed with Cy. And this is the reason why I believe that. That is because Cy is a professional, but because Cy is also a Christian and also already agrees with John on ABio, John feels that Cy is a professional that's actually a professional, if you know what I mean. And so he would feel that disagreeing with Cy would give him bad coverage. Now, I'm going to try to get through this as fast as I possibly can. There's a few points that I wanted to touch. First thing is first, DNA is not a code. From the National Human Genome Research Institute, I want to read this. The instructions in a gene that tell a cell how to make a specific protein, A, C, G, and T are the letters, and they have that in quotes, of the DNA code. They stand for the chemicals adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. Respectively, that make up the nucleotide bases of DNA. Each gene's code combines 4 chemicals in various ways to spell out 3-letter, and again in quotes, words. So it's obvious when they use those 2 words that are in quotes that they're tongue-in-cheek, that specify which amino acid is needed at every step to making a protein. The relationship between a molecule of DNA and a protein strand that it can produce is, in many senses, even ontologically, a code. There is a relationship there. The molecule of DNA itself is not a code. And really quickly, a review of a book that is called, give me a second here, I cannot remember what the book is called, I'm going to have to open the link. It's Who Wrote the Book of Life, A History of the Genetic Code by Lily E.K. And a Stanford University Press review of this book says as follows, quote, yet as the author points out, these are just metaphors, analogies, not ontologies. Necessary and productive as they have been, they have their epistemological limitations. Deploying analyses of language, cryptology, and information theory, the author persuasively argues that, technically speaking, the genetic code is not a code, DNA is not a language, and the genome is not an information system. Objections that were voiced by experts as early as the 1950s. So, the molecule itself is not a code. The genetic code is the code table that humans invented, which represents the molecule of DNA, its structure, and how it operates. Similarly, a map of the United States of America is a map. The United States of America is not. It's a continent. The map represents the continent. The genetic code represents the molecule of DNA and what it does. Otangelo mentioned photosynthesis. And I've read this paper a couple of times. I still don't think I could really parse it out as well as I'd like to. So I want to read a bit of a snippet from it in terms of photosynthesis and the evolution of photosynthesis. This paper is from 2010. It was by Robert E. Blankenship, and he states in the paper, overwhelming evidence indicates that eukaryotic photosynthesis originated from endosymbiosis of cyanobacterial-like organisms, which ultimately became chloroplasts. And he cites a paper, Margulis, 1992, for that. So the evolutionary origin of photosynthesis is to be found in the bacterial domain. Significant evidence indicates that the current distribution of photosynthesis in bacteria is the result of substantial amounts of horizontal gene transfer, which has shuffled the genetic information that codes various parts of the photosynthetic apparatus so that no one simple branching diagram can accurately represent the evolution of photosynthesis.
Margulis you're talking about, she's also the founder of the endosymbiont theory, and she's worked a lot. She's sadly passed away. She died of a stroke in like 2011 or something like that. But up until her death, she was working rather intently on the nature of the organelles being endosymbiotic. And she was actually the one who had done some of the work on that blue-green algae that I mentioned in the Q&A, because this thing with and I'm just, quick sidelining in a cool thing about that, but it's like, you've got this blue-green, algae, right? Mm-hmm. And blue-green algae is like the lame word for it, but everyone knows what blue-green algae is and no one knows what the real thing is. So that's what we're calling it. But yeah, you've got the larger bacteria, right? Or the larger organism. And then within it, you've got and then an additional bacteria that replicates with the larger cell, and yet it retains its own cell wall, and yet it retains its own genome, and it does its own deal. And it's essentially this endosymbiosis in action, as it were, which is really, really cool. And Margulis was the one who, while she was wrong on a lot of stuff, boy, did she nail the endosymbiont theory.
Mm-hmm. I also put the paper that I was reading from in the private chat here. So that's all I'm going to cite from that. There's more interesting stuff in it. You did read the literature is what I would say.
3 billion years ago?
The other thing that I wanted to read was on I believe the paper is called, let me scroll up here, The Origin and Early Evolution of Eukaryotes in the Light of Phylogenomics. And if I can find the right place.
You're muffled a little there, Leo.
Yeah, your mic keeps changing volume.
How about now?
Yeah.
Really good.
You're good.
Okay. So this is what they say in this paper. In short, it is currently impossible to strictly rule out the possibility that the key eukaryotic innovations evolved independently from and prior to the mitochondrial endosymbiosis. In other words, the host of the endosymbiont might have been an archaeozoan. However, the archaeozoan scenario does not provide a plausible staging of events during the evolution of the complex internal organization of the eukaryotic cell, does not offer a raison d'etre for the nucleus, and does not account for the presence of signature functional systems of eukaryotes in different archaeal lineages. In contrast, the symbiogenesis scenario can tie all of these diverse lines of evidence into a coherent, even if still woefully incomplete narrative. So the thing about this is, and this is what I'm going to finish with, the thing about things like the evolution of photosynthesis, the evolution of or the prokaryote eukaryote split, all of these different things is just, number one, just because we don't have an answer does not mean we can't get one, and is not room for you to insert whatever asinine, half-assed, harebrained idea you want to insert because you're trying to protect some preconceived belief that you have. Number two, it doesn't mean that we won't ever get an explanation. Science is a process. We obviously don't have the answers for literally everything right now, and to assume that we do is to completely miss the mark on humans, what we have discovered, and where we are going. We don't have explanations for a hell of a lot of things that we observe in the natural world. However, that doesn't mean that it was some intelligence. And finally, to argue that we've only ever seen an intelligence do it, therefore it's reasonable to assume that an intelligence did it this time, is by textbook definition commission of the black swan fallacy, whereby one argues in a sort of an analogical sense, I've only ever seen white swans, therefore it's not possible that black swans exist. Because you haven't seen them, you cannot conclude that they don't exist. Just because we've only seen an intelligence develop machines, which I would have contentions with saying that cells are machines, or codes and whatever fancy words, semiotics, algorithms, language, syntax, all these other fancy terms that they want to use that, let's be honest, are analogical. Even if we granted that they're ontological, it doesn't mean that an intelligence did it. This could be the first thing that we're seeing that nature has been capable of doing, because you have to remember, nature existed before we did. So anything that we do that we see in nature doesn't mean that, well, we're an intelligence and we designed it, therefore some intelligence designed nature. It means, hey, we can do what nature can do. It doesn't mean nature does what intelligence can do. What it means is that an intelligence like us can do what nature can do. And I will stop there.
Yeah, there's. I think that's superb. I mean, there are a great deal of things that nature is capable of that humans can't even come close to mimicking. The complexity of any given ecosystem is the one that I tend to go to. I mean, you've got relationship upon relationship dependent on populations and species, and hierarchical across food webs and trophic levels that are dependent on abiotic and biotic factors that are all intertwined with one another. Yeah, epigenetics, sure, whatever. Yeah, all of that
like,
stuff.
Holy shit, that adds like a whole extra layer that makes it all super complicated.
Yeah, we can't mimic this. And yet, anytime there's a volcanic eruption and we see this brand new primary succession of like a brand new island, we see these animals, we see these plants, we see these microorganisms of all kinds taking root and forming these new ecosystems whereby they are dependent upon one another because it's an island nation and no one can go anywhere. Real quick, I want to talk with Dapper because he just got in here, but let me read a couple of these super chats. Stupid War Energy says, you and Creation Myths would be a powerhouse team. The dream debate for me right now would be myself and Creation Myths versus John Maddox and anyone he can manage. Standing
for truth. John Maddox is standing for truth. You two versus them.
Dude, that would be. Oh my God.
Until model.
Yeah, that would be superb.
That's the hashtag.
Erika, I'd say that you and I about paleontology would also be an
That's
interesting
true,
debate.
Dapper.
That would be a good one.
I would team up with you on paleontology in a heartbeat. You're my go-to paleo guy of anything that's not a primate.
Yeah, because like I've got a lot of the Mesozoic and you got a lot of the human stuff, and that's all creationists care about is like dinosaurs and humans. They don't give a damn about anything else.
Dinosaurs are big and they will talk them.
Oh yeah.
Because they think that they were riding them.
Pseudosuchians, Ammonites, who cares?
Your volume is good now, but there's a lot of robotiness.
Yeah, it's still like clicking and clacking.
I don't know how to fix that. The volume issue I don't know much about. I did want to say, Erika, but after you read super chats, before you jump in with Dapper, would it be all right if I made one other really, really quick point?
Yeah, it's fine. Let me read these super chats though.
Leo, you are on fire right now, so just keep going.
True.
Oh, yeah, you're stealing the
Yeah,
show.
we've got 85 people in the live, or 86 people in the live chat, which is superb. I mean, I'm on a delay, so
I am. Please go subscribe to my channel. All right, that's all the clout I'm chasing. I'm going to do.
Leo, that was an affront against nature. That sound.
There's this thing called microphone clipping. Avoid it.
Yeah.
Everybody subscribe to Leo.
That sound
Yeah,
made
that-
the dinosaurs go extinct.
Yeah. Yeah, so a second KPG right here because of Leo's like verbal,
I'm sorry, I got really close to my mic.
vibration. Yeah, no, hey, listen, I can feel it. So sometimes you got to get close for emphasis, but
Yeah, I pull a Vosh and I get really, really close and bring my voice down and just go on a rant.
folks, if you are in the chat and you think this is like a cool thing, then like do the like and comment and subscribe deal. And thank you for being here. Silver Harlow says nothing could be as wet as water if it weren't designed to be wet. Checkmate atheists, every ID ever. True.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's
pretty good.
Yeah, that's dead on. Next up, we have also. I'm hearing a little echo. I don't know who's echoing, but someone's echoing.
I cannot hear it, but
Maybe
their
we're-
echoes are weird on
Yes, I can
StreamYard.
hear
It's like an STD that goes through StreamYard, and some people catch it and some people don't.
Thanks. I hate it. Vandalia 1998 says, "Was this your first time debating? Was this the first time you were debating and not moderating in a while? And hope everyone has a great Christmas holiday with loved ones. Yeah, Merry Christmas and of course Happy Holidays to everyone. Yeah, this is my first time getting back in the debate scene, but unfortunately there just aren't enough creationists to go around.
And also, it's still Festivus where I am, so happy Festivus, which is a holiday for the rest of us.
Yeah,
Merry
Dapper will roast you for the incorrect holiday celebrations. That's like his whole deal.
Yeah, no,
I was in
90% of the things I care about are that Christmas starts on December 25th and ends on the evening. Actually, it starts on the evening of December 24th, and it ends on the evening of January 5th.
Yeah,
Who
he
just
said-
I was gonna say, Dapper, really quickly. I was in a chat on the Rage stream, the Raging Atheist Nakasuchi, and we were talking about whether Christmas is pagan, and I straight up told them that no, Christmas literally was invented by the Christians. The time of year that it's celebrated might have roots, external to Christianity, but
All right, so I'll give a
Christian-
2-minute spiel on Christmas and the
Please
dates and
do,
whatnot.
please
Okay,
do.
so in the very early Christian church, the Feast of the Annunciation was considered the more important holiday because it was the celebration of the actual incarnation, because the idea was that Jesus became incarnate when Mary became pregnant, which was on the 25th of March or whatever. And then there was an idea that was common in Christian and Jewish communities that various prophets, which included Jesus, were born exactly 9 months to the day after the day they were conceived, which for Jesus was December 25th. Now, it accrued pagan holiday practices because December 25th is close to solstice celebrations on the 21st. And so it was very easy for people to take their previous pre-Christian traditions like Yule logs and Christmas trees and whatnot, and then ship them forward a few days. And that's how you get pagan traditions as part of Christmas. But the feast of the birth of Jesus was on December 25th, long before these accretions of pagan traditions glommed onto Christmas. So is Christmas pagan? No. Does modern Christian celebration of Christmas involve pagan practices? Yes.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I explained. And most people did agree with that, so I do want to give them credit there.
I remember.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. This is just gonna be real quick. I remember taking a. Okay, this is a little off topic, but I go to I'm a high school student, and I go to a Presbyterian high school, which is a lot of fun. And I was taking a comparative religion class last year with a reverend in my town who taught it, and other than the part where he said that gays don't go to heaven, the part I remember the most.
That's not even normal Christian theology.
I know. It's he's a
true Christian.
He's conservative, let's say. And the other part I remember the most is he said, "Oh, when is it?" He was saying about when Easter is celebrated. It's like this. I don't even remember. Something to do with a spring equinox. And he was like, "You don't get any more pagan than that."
I mean, except for the fact that every ancient culture depends on things like, seasonal cycles for things like harvest And the
agriculture.
fact is that
that's
the
true.
date of Easter in both the Western and the Christian traditions, which have different dates, are both based on the Jewish calendar, and Passover, which itself is tied to, the solstice, but it's not directly so. In fact, it's actually less tied to the solstice in modern Christianity, because modern Christianity uses an older version of the Jewish calendar than is currently used by Jews, which is actually somewhat less accurate. And then the East gets even more complicated, because then they say, oh, it's the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon, unless that's before or on Jewish Passover, according to the old version of the Jewish calendar, in which case then we have to put it on the nearest Sunday after. And it just gets super complicated. But no, it doesn't come down to when is the equinox, therefore now you know the date of Easter. It revolves obscenely complicated calendar stuff.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
true.
right,
The funny part about it was everybody assumed it was just like the first Sunday in April or whenever the hell it is.
No,
but it's actually like
way
this
more
super complicated, random whatever it is garbage.
Yeah, so there's this whole thing about the Paschal full moon, which is the first full moon after the equinox, but it's based on a now defunct calendar that has ties back to the Jewish calendar. And then in the Western Christianity, which is Protestantism and Catholicism, as well as a few other groups like Old Catholics or whatever, that's just the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon. But then in Eastern Christianity, which is like the Eastern Orthodox, the Oriental Orthodox, the remaining vestiges of the Nestorianism, and etc., it's the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon, unless that's on or before the date for Passover, according to the old version of the Jewish calendar that was current up until I think like the 3rd or 4th century CE, in which case you push it to the first Sunday after that. And of course, Sunday starts at sundown on Saturday for the Christian liturgical calendar. So liturgically, so actually that's a commonality between Christianity and Judaism. The day ends and then begins. So the day ends on sundown, and the next day starts at sundown. So for what we think of as Friday is from midnight until midnight, but for liturgical purposes, both the Jewish calendar and the Christian calendar count sundown as the new day. So the beginning of, say, Easter cycle celebrations in the Christian churches traditionally start on Saturday evening, what we would think of as Saturday evening. But liturgically for them, that's the beginning of Sunday, which is why I start saying Merry Christmas at sundown on Saturday.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, Dapper will pistol whip folks who get that wrong.
He's a history major.
As he should, right?
Didn't you focus on like antiquities or medieval history, something in that's relevant to time period?
I have a history degree with a minor in medieval and Renaissance studies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the great thing. So right now, as a result of the large swaths of the Eastern churches not adopting the calendar reformations that came about in, I think, the 15th century, like in places like Russia and certain like uber conservative parts of Greece, Christmas starts on the 6th, because that's actually when they count December 25th, because they have extra leap years that the rest of the world kind of skipped over and then stopped having. Like in 2000, we didn't have a leap year. But the Russian Orthodox Church did have a leap year, which means there's technically 24 days total where it's Christmas for somebody.
Yeah.
I love that. Before we continue, I got to finish these super chats because I'm going to forget them. Crazy Monk 27 for $5 says, I always appreciate the way Erika is able to get through sound arguments in a rational way. Helps me understand the science of the subject. That is actually the goal 100% every time. I think that the whole purpose of these kinds of debates is to make sure that you're getting your position across in a way that is digestible, instead of just, I don't know, throwing out jargon words to try to sound smart.
John, looking at you.
Not that anyone we know, of course, is
Dr. Roll Eyes.
Yeah, not that anyone
Roll Eyes.
Next up, sorry, I'm scrolling down. I know there was a couple of significant ones. Rodent No Last Name for $5. I celebrate Xmas because Isaac Newton's birthday. We love that. We love to see the science puns. Xmas.
Yeah.
Oh.
So here's the thing, though. The X stands for Chi, which is just the first letter in Greek, Christos, which is just Christ.
Yeah.
So all the people who are like, keep the Christ in Christmas, stop saying Xmas, you just don't know why that's an abbreviation. because the
Of
X
course they
literally
don't.
stands
Yeah.
for Christ.
Yeah, keep the
You have
hood
to
and
remember,
Christmas.
Dapper, these are the same people that tell everybody to learn to speak English, but can't really speak it very well themselves.
True.
So Cloud of Time for 20
Keep
whole
the
dollars.
Christ in
Thank you, Cloud of
Christmas.
Time. That was super. That is a superb donation, and you did not have to do that. I'm accepting it as a Christmas present. So thank you, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. It says, "You're a destroyer. Great job. Unfortunately, the substance may have been lost on much of the audience. I might be wrong on the audience on the audio issue. Symbol is representation. Representation of thing is not the thing. Thanks, Leo. Cloud of Time gives the seal of approval." And from Marty Mad Scientist, great job, Erika, standing up to that dishonest misogynist. Can't get insult through the monitor, but it involved his beard looking like stubby. We'll let that one stand. Listen, far be it from me to ever accuse someone of being misogynistic. I personally don't like that one because I think people tend to assume when you're like, hey, maybe that's like a little bit misogynistic, that you're like trying to make an excuse for not answering the question in full. But I have definitely seen John do like weird misogynist chauvinisty things in other settings. So thank you.
Yeah, he's kind of a misogynist.
Stupidor Energy for $5 says, ironically, Behe admitted that P. falciparum may be a product of ID. That is ironic. That's classic. That would
Quick
be
question: where's Behe's T-chat?
Yeah, great question.
Well, for me, the great thing about Behe is that like he's okay with like all of Artiodactyla, presumably including cetaceans, sharing common ancestry. So I'm like, I mean, okay, but you've now given up basically the entire reason that most anti-evolutionists get rid of evolution, which is human common ancestry with non-humans. So have fun with that.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, and that's what I was trying to emphasize tonight. That I think was kind of a couple of times glossed over, is that it's like, look, no matter how you square it, you're going to lump human with genus Pan. That's the chimps and the bonobos. No matter which gene you're using, no matter what chromosome you're looking at, no matter how you're measuring it, and those two, genus Homo and genus Pan, are going to remain closer than rats and mice and lions and tigers, which is significant.
Right.
Because
and no creationist is rejecting lions and tigers.
And therein lies the problem. And we've discussed this ad nauseum, but it's a perceived, on my end for sure, and I would assume for you guys too, but it's a perceived hypocrisy on, human special, so we'll abandon the empirical the second we get to humanity because no one want to be monkey. And it's like, that bums me out because I think monkeys are awesome.
Yeah,
As a third humans are not that special.
Real quick, so I want to hear from Dapper because he got here, and I want to hear from Matt as well for thoughts on how the debate went. And then I know Matt wanted to ask Leo a couple of questions. So is that okay with everyone?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, works for me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Dapper, what'd you think?
Okay, so there were a couple things. I think there were a few rhetorical points that Sai made that maybe I wouldn't have. I think I probably would have just dropped the code thing rather than trying to argue for or against. But my biggest disappointment was that John Maddox didn't bring up semiotics, because I had to dig into my library to find my linguistics textbook, which is
I was ready for that too.
General Course in Linguistics. And my favorite thing was because normally Maddox likes to bring up this idea that like, oh, DNA uses semiotics. But the thing is, in chapter 1 of part 1 of my linguistics textbook, it explains that semiotics is meaningless unless you're transferring information from one mind to another. That is literally what it's about. Anything else isn't semiotics. But he didn't bring it up, so I felt like I wasted my time going through it. But anyway, what I was most disappointed with in the sort of ID side was I didn't really see any positive case for ID other than, gee whiz, this is complicated, but complicated doesn't equal intelligently designed. And if you want to argue that it is, you're going to have an uphill battle, but they didn't even try. And so I was just like, okay, great, lots of things are complicated. You know what is complicated? The actual quantum state that every single molecule and atom in a rock takes. But you know what? The system has to take a place. And if there's a selection filter, then that place is going to be subject to the selection filter. And in both rocks, say like in the case of crystals, and in life forms, there's a selection pressure. So we shouldn't be surprised when variously complicated or orderly states take place in the case of selection filters. You have to go farther than that to prove your case. But they didn't. It just stated, whoa, that's complicated, dude. It's like, okay, when you come down from being high on intelligent design and give me an argument.
So
Might I
then-
make a point here really quickly? Because the point
Yeah,
that I wanted to make is actually related to what Dapper is talking about.
Please do.
And Sai alluded to this in the debate, that you will inherently get extremely complex. And this is the thing about life. It's not just complex, it is overly complex. There are things that just don't need to be there that make it way more complex than it needs to be anyway. When you have something like stochasticity, like we see in quantum mechanics and in generally in chemistry, you're going to inherently get a lot of complexity and different structures and potentially even functions from certain molecules producing other molecules. And what Sai said is that you can take a computer program with just a 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5, rules defining how it works and get extremely complex things out of it. You can get very, very complex with just a very, very small and simple set of rules. And that's what life is in relation to reality.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely dead on. And I hope
And the mathematicians and the information theorists will attest to what I just said. I've asked them.
Yeah, they will. And so it's my hope, and what now my light is flickering. It must have the that Maddox is astrally projecting into
Actually,
my
that's God.
He's so upset.
That's vibrational energy from my mind.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's got about as much predictability power as ID does, because that was my big beef, and that's what I kept trying to mention over and over again, Dapper. And I hope that came across like generally to the audience, is that it's like, look, if you want to look at abiogenesis and even early evolution, and you want to say, wow, that's really complex, I don't see how that could be done. This is blowing my mind. It blows my mind too. I think that's an appropriate stance to take, and incredulity is not unwarranted there, because it can be really insane. And a lot of those steps, while we're working on them, they're not complete, and no one's saying that they are.
Yeah.
The problem comes when you reach Luca, like Sai said, when you reach the last universal common ancestor, you're pretty well there. And we can track from that last universal common ancestor, we can track forward that change over time with just, what's the word I'm looking for? With murderous precision, if you will.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, but
Extraordinary precision.
Compelling.
Well, that's why in my debates, anytime it gets
precision,
it gets back past Luca, I'm just like, look, I'm willing to just say the creation of Luca was miraculous. If that's where you want to leave the creation event, okay. If that's where you want to leave the first design event, okay. But it also means that all these things that you're citing, like the bacterial flagellum, or the tetrapod blood clotting system, or all these other things that you say are instances of intelligent design, no. We know that those things can evolve from Luca. We have actual pathways. And the thing is, even if we don't know what the particular pathway is, if we have a single plausible pathway for any irreducibly complex system past Luca, it defeats the entire argument.
It ceases to be irreducibly complex, right?
Yeah, right. From irreducible complexity, from Luca on. Now, if you want to say that, oh, what about one that Luca had to get? I'm going to say, well, the fact that we can explain irreducible complexity at all argues against that for Luca, but I don't really care. If you want to say that's the one and only, or the most recent design event, I don't super care, because there is no theory of abiogenesis. And until there is, I'm not going to defend one, because there isn't one. But I'm also not going to tell people to stop researching.
The conversation is fun. Like, I don't know very much about abio. I read about it a decent-ish amount, I suppose. And like, I will sit down and have a conversation and be like, here are my thoughts. Here's what I think. But I'm not going to be like, hey, woohoo, we figured it out. Like, whatever, because we haven't. And to say that we did would be disingenuous, as the whole community knows and recognizes.
And that's why they,
yeah, guys,
it's the same gap that like the dualism argument goes into, like the hard problem of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Like they just take a little bit of uncertainty and they add some faith, and then boom, it's like debunked.
Yeah. Well, and so the thing is for me too, is that it's like, and John was real careful. I noticed he didn't use that fruit of a poison tree line that I was just waiting for him to use, because he loves calling evolution the fruit of a poison tree, because you can't prove abio and evolution doesn't happen, or whatever it is that he proposes. And Sai and I, in our Zoom call prior, we went over this, and we were like, all right, and from my perspective, I was like, it's silly, because like if you're if you're in any field of science, but for sake of analogy, let's say that we're a forensic anthropologist and we stumble across this guy and he's dead in the woods. Like he's just been BTFO'd and he's laying there and he's got this big gash in his head and then there's a bloody hammer lying next to him and you're like, dang, guess we better figure out where his parents immigrated from. And like, that's the logic that origins are best comes from. Instead of working from what you got, who's the guy, what's his name, what's his blood type, where does he come from, and working backwards to more intense, more distant in the past problems and questions. They say you got to start backwards and move forwards. That's not how any field works.
Yeah, actually, I have a similar analogy I use, which is, let's say you and a buddy are in a car and you come across it's icy out, it's winter, and you come across a car in the ditch and you can see a little skid line from the road to the ditch. And I say, oh, look, there's ice on the road. He must have lost control, slid into the ditch, and that's why he's here. And then your friend is like, yeah, but what address did the car start from? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, then how do you know he slid into the ditch? I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would that matter?
Yeah.
How do you know he remembered to fill his tank?
Can I make a comment really quickly?
Yes, please.
So the thing with abiogenesis, I'm not like my field of specialty is generally astrophysics, cosmology, and quantum mechanics, but abiogenesis is an area I've looked a lot into. There are, I guess you could say, several different models, hypothetical models for how life on Earth could have generally evolved to the point of being considered life on a prebiotic Earth. I don't necessarily subscribe to any one. I think some show more promise than others, but all of them have issues. The thing that I would say is when I have discussions about abiogenesis, I don't go with a particular model. I just discuss what the science says, regardless of which model it relates to. We've got polymerase ribozymes that can synthesize functional molecules in the absence of proteins. We've got RNA enzymes that can utilize oligonucleotide substrates to self-amplify. We have a couple of ideas about how potentially the first cells, the things that make up what would be like the first protocells or ob cells, could have co-localized. We know the types of environments these things could have potentially happened in. That's what I talk about. And it seems to me that if one's going to argue that abiogenesis precludes evolution, then we pretty much already know that abiogenesis is something that happened, even if we don't know how, because we know that evolution happened. And I would state that abiogenesis did happen some way, and we don't know how. I like to often akin abiogenesis to quantum gravity. It's the quantum gravity of biology to me. It's the one place where we're really struggling to get an answer. We've got some models. They all have their problems, but they've all got parts of them that work. And it seems to me that the reason so many people stick their God in the gap of abiogenesis is because it's one of the biggest gaps in human knowledge, which I think is a testament to the fact that it really just fundamentally is an argument from incredulity. I wonder why, however, they don't do the same with something like quantum gravity and physics, because you don't see debates like you on abiogenesis.
The possibility that angels just ever so slightly push massive particles towards each other at the quantum level?
Oh no, it's not angels; it's fairies.
They didn't think about that.
I feel like, though, if Erika or Sai were to say that, like, well, that's an argument from incredulity during the debate, John would have been like, man, you're just repeating that talking point that's all everybody says.
Yeah, dude. But the thing is that that's like getting a guy on trial and you caught him, killing some dude or holding up a bank or something, and you got it on video and you put him up on the stand, and the investigator comes up, or the prosecutor, and they're like, listen, we've got you on video. You definitely did this thing. We know what happened. And he's like, man, this is the classic talking points that I hear from you guys. Like, I've been hearing nothing but this. And it's like, yeah, because you won't.
Like, man, I'm so tired of lawyers.
You haven't proved that it's not my identical twin I don't know about that was switched at birth.
You can't just listen to the question and then get mad that you get asked it multiple times. That's baby logic. That's little baby logic. But I'm really fast. I got to intrude. Matt has been here for a while. He hasn't gotten to say anything, and I've been seeing the gears turning. He's been thinking. He wants something to say, or he wants to say some stuff. So, Matt,
I've had interactions with Matt. Matt is a good guy. I know.
Matt. I love Matt. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Thank you. So, as far as the debate, my thoughts were, I felt that the evolutionary side overall seemed to be more articulate, particularly with you, Erika. But I believe I believe that the other side, I don't know. It seemed like they were having a hard time holding their composure. Well, at least with John, I guess his name is. So I don't know. The only thing is, I am a creationist, so I because I agree with their side, I'd have to give it a draw.
To me, that's to hear that from you, Matt. That's a win. I always being called articulate is like a huge compliment, and I appreciate your honesty because, like, obviously, where you're coming from is an important thing to take into account, and I don't blame you for that. I know you and Leo wanted to chat, and I've got to throw this banana peel away and get some more water. So if you guys want to start doing that, I'll be back in just a second. And I don't know, Dapper's in charge.
Poggers.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So nice to see you.
How's
again,
it going?
Leo.
Hey, Matt. I thought you were a creationist.
Not bad.
I was like, man.
Yeah,
I remember
we were having
you
a fun chat right before the debate.
Yeah, I said a few weeks ago, and I was chatting with Leo. In case you were wondering, I am related to Bill Nye, the science guy. I've never met him, but obviously I'm somewhat related to him by virtue of the fact that I have the last name as him. But what I meant is, I'm more closely related to him than I initially.
You went all the way back to the Bible.
I'm not exactly.
Yeah, Father Abraham, right?
No, we trace our lineage back to the 1600s.
Well, isn't there a full 6,000 years?
In
Can't go back farther.
Well, I mean, I mean,
that's
just
where they converge is that late, but they would continue to converge farther back.
I have a Mayflower.
That's your last common ancestor, you might say.
Luca, yeah.
Yeah, there's actually a Nye museum in Massachusetts. I plan to visit that sometime. But anyway, yeah. So Leo, I had some questions for you. This has to do with
questions.
This is more like epistemology. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, so you said a lot, and I've heard you say like you were like saying a lot of things like we know this to be true. For example, a few minutes ago, you said that we know evolution's true. We know that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some questions written here. They're not trick questions. It's just like a series of questions. So
totally, yeah.
Don't think too hard on it. But my first question is: do you believe in proof?
It depends on the context that you're speaking. If you're speaking in a scientific context, no, because science doesn't prove things. If you're saying, do I believe proofs when they're provided and they're sound and they're valid? Yes.
Okay. So proof presupposes truth, logic, knowledge, correct?
In
I have a
sense,
question.
yes.
Do you think we exist? Just to start.
Well, I want to avoid having like two conversations.
Give him a minute to ask the questions first.
I just want to ask these questions, and then you guys can jump in later if you want. But I want to go through these questions. Just
do you just like acknowledge right now that we exist?
Yes.
I think he's asking you for yourself.
Okay, good. That's all I want to know. Like, cause like sometimes like you say like we have to question solipsism and stuff, and then it gets down into irreducible levels. So and I'm just trying to avoid that.
Yeah, I don't think math's a solipsist.
I want to lay kind of like a foundation in saying that we each have a worldview. And so what I'm asking Leo is I'm asking him questions based on his worldview. And then I'm going to get to kind of like a conclusion. And then obviously my worldview is different. But and then if you want to jump in, you can as well.
Okay, but, go ahead. I was just
ask the last question that you asked. I just want to make sure that I heard it right.
Yeah, so my next question is, so proof presupposes truth, logic, knowledge, correct?
I would state that it presupposes the existence of a logical structure, because truth and knowledge to me are related to having a logical structure in terms of a syntactical language.
Okay, so you use the word truth, and your answer just now. What is truth in your worldview?
Truth is that which comports with reality in a consistently verifiable and accurate and predictive manner. To me.
So a correspondence theory of truth. Truth is that which corresponds to reality.
In some senses, yes. In most senses, yes. But I would argue that there could be instances where truth corresponds to something that might not be an aspect of reality. So if I have a thought of a pink unicorn, the unicorn being pink is true of the unicorn that I'm thinking of. But obviously, no pink unicorn actually exists in reality. So generally speaking, yes, truth corresponds to reality. But there are
concept and electrons and chemicals in your brain, and now in all of our brains, and all 90 people of watching us right now, and all the people that will watch this video in the future will be thinking of pink unicorns, and that will be real. But outside of that, it's imaginary.
Yeah, it's an abstraction. It's not a concrete physical object.
So we would agree truth corresponds to that. It corresponds to reality. But
for the sake of discussion, yes, I can say yes.
My next question is, how do you know what's real?
How do I know? And I'm not asking this question to like play semantics games. I'm asking it because there are people that use it in different contexts. Under which context are you using the term real?
Basically what we just established prior to that.
So what are you asking me? What is? How do I know what is truth? I guess would that be a sort of what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, how do you justify a knowledge claim? So, for example, if I were to say I'm chatting to a guy who goes by the screen name Leophilius.
You can just call me Leo.
Okay, Leo. How do I know that? Well, because I see on my screen that's what it reads next to where your video box is. Okay, so then you could ask, well, how do you know your eyes are working properly? Well, then I could say, because I went to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor told me my eyes are fine. And on a daily basis, I use my eyes to navigate reality.
So are you asking essentially, how do I know that the things that I say are true are in fact true?
Right. I mean, anything you can think of that you claim to know for sure. How do you know what is real?
I would say due to a body of objectively verifiable data that concords exclusively with or positively indicates the thing that I'm claiming to be true. So to give an example, I would state that I know, and I take that knowledge is justified true belief view of knowledge, and I would state that under that I know that stars emit electromagnetic radiation because I can justify it. It's true, and I believe it. And I can do that through something I call the scientific method: observation, corroboration, consistent verification, examining predictions, things that if this is true, these other things should also be true. So if we observe these other things actually being true, then that corroborates this primary thing, I guess you could say, being true.
Okay, I'm getting to the end of this, so
take your time. Take your time.
Okay, so my next question is, now in order to come to those truth claims, you are employing your reasoning, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So truth, through your own reasoning, correct?
I would say yes. I can come to know what I would consider to be true, what would be considered to be true through the reasoning that I have via evolutionary development.
How do you know your reasoning is valid?
Because I can consistently apply it and come to accurate and corroborable explanations of how reality works. I know that my reasonability is reliable because it has been demonstrated to be. It's like asking, well, how do you know if you get in your car tomorrow, you'll be able to drive 500 miles? And you could say, well, because I did that 3 days ago. So you're right. Something could go wrong, but it hasn't yet. So I am justified in presupposing, or what's the word I'm looking for? Where you're going into the future, not precognition, where the thing is expected to be true as I continue to go forward. Because it's been true at every instance in the past, I am justified in assuming that it will continue to be true into the future. That's how I would word it.
You just proved that I'm never going to die because I haven't died in the past.
Oh,
well, but people have died in the past. So
you are an animal, and all animals die. So that is like a non-valid.
So you are a human being, and we have observed human beings die in the past. So I know that you will die in the future because you're a human being, and literally all human beings have died in the past. That have died, they've died. You are also a human being therefore you will die. It's a syllogism. Premise 1, all human beings, literally, all human beings that have ever lived have died. Premise 2, Matt and I is a human being. Conclusion, therefore Matt and I will die. So it would just be, again...
I think that is a fact, Leo. And now I can imagine we could live a longer time and we could keep saying we're alive until we're not. And we can't say anything once we die. So it's not like it really matters.
Say la vie, baby.
I literally got like 2 more questions, so I
go ahead.
Or is it say no?
I didn't mean
Oh,
to
dude,
take
this
up
is
all
great.
the time. I just wanted to finish this, if you don't mind.
No,
Go
take
ahead,
your
go
time.
ahead.
Listen, everyone's
Okay.
loving it. So by all means.
This is really great.
So Leo, you're would it be fair to say that you're using your reasoning to justify your reasoning? Isn't that circular?
Well, yeah, all of logic is circular. A is the law of identity, I believe. That's fundamentally
how are we
the
having
proper
this
the proper
conversation?
term is tautological. I have axiomatic presuppositions that I base the way in which I reason about the reality that I live in on. Those are by definition unjustifiable. I have no problem in granting that. However, can they consistently yield accurate results that I can corroborate with other people? Yes, they can.
Well, my question is, could you be wrong about everything you claim to know?
Is there some possible world in which everything that I currently know to be true might be false? I would say yes, but then I would also say this world is not that world.
So, but I mean, I guess is that a yes? You could be wrong about everything you claim to know.
In some, and I apologize if I'm speaking in more philosophical terms. In some possible world, essentially means there exists some possibility that could be the case. However, that doesn't necessarily insinuate that it is the case in the current state of affairs that we exist in. So yes, it is possible. But I also want to make a distinction between possibility, probability, and actuality, which are 3 different steps. Probability or possibility precludes probability. Actuality precludes both probability and possibility. It is possible that I am wrong about everything, but I would say I don't think I have a reason to assume that that is even likely to be the case about at least most things that I would claim to know, in my opinion.
Right, and obviously, in my worldview, I believe that you know things. I believe that we all do. I'm just saying, I'm trying to get an understanding from your worldview. How do you justify any knowledge claim? If you could be wrong about everything, then it only logically follows that you don't know anything.
I would state that if it's possible that we could be wrong about things, I would state that that doesn't mean that we can't know anything. What that means is that we can't know anything with an established level of certainty, that we can know things only insofar as what we're capable of observing, measuring, testing for, things like that. So a good example, general relativity, which describes gravity, space-time curves, and we fall into those curves, yada, 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 that could be wrong. But based on what we know now, there isn't any justification for the claim that it is wrong.
Is it true that
we are perfectly justified in accepting that it is the case that gravity is curvature in the geometry of space-time, even if that cannot be established with 100% certainty? So I guess what I would say is, and sorry to interrupt, but I guess what I would say is we can establish things, maybe not with 100% certainty, but there is a degree to which we can state that things obviously seem to be consistently the case, and thereby we should work from those to develop a better knowledge of what we are seemingly observing around us.
So my basically from my worldview is I believe that in order to know anything for sure is you either have to have all knowledge or you have to have revelation from somebody who has all knowledge. In other words,
revelation mean?
What I mean by this is this: when you make a knowledge claim, you don't know it. If you don't know everything, the things
what
you
does revelation mean?
Well, hold on, I want to hear what he has to say.
The things that you don't know could contradict what you claim to know. So in order to actually know anything for sure, you have to know either A, know everything, or B, have revelation from someone who does. So my worldview is that's God. And I guess that's why I'm trying to understand in your worldview, how do you justify...
Hold up. Can you back up and repeat? Because I didn't track that last like at least 3 or 4 clauses.
He said revelation, and you didn't define.
So what? And I'd like to steel man him here. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. Just because I want to steel man to see if I understand what you're saying. That the only way we can say we know anything with certainty is to either A, know everything, so that we know that there's nothing that actually contradicts the thing that we're knowing, and B, that something that does know everything told you about the truth of this. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Okay, I have a real quick question. How do you know that the thing that told you that it knows everything? Okay, here's the thing. Matt, I know everything.
I'm still here, but I'm going to shut my camera off.
Me, Dapper Dino, I know literally everything. Now, you might ask me about things, and I might say I'm not going to tell you, but that doesn't mean I don't know. But here's the thing. I'm going to tell you right now. The Earth is closer to 4.5 billion years old by several orders of magnitude than it is to 6,000 years old.
True.
And humans share common ancestry, not just with ferns or chimpanzees, but with Escherichia coli, the E. coli bacteria you hear scares about. Now, since I know everything, now you know it for certain, unless, of course, you're going to be intellectually dishonest and deny this ultimate truth that I've just told you.
Quick interlude. CRISPR wanted me to ask you, Matt, if you can get clean water from a dirty filter.
Can I get clean water?
That's an odd question.
I would say no.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
Hold on a second. Well, I guess you'd first have to define clean and define dirty. I mean,
can you define revelation?
I don't know if it's a rhetoric or not.
I'm going to say it depends on which side of the filter is dirty. If
yeah, is it like?
If I'm passing water through the dirty side to the clean side, then yes. Other way, no, not so much.
I feel like it was a rhetorical question hinting at, I'm trying to speak for CRISPR here, so I might be wrong on this interpretation, that he might think that Matt is maybe poisoning the well, i.e. you can't get clean water from a dirty filter. But to the last point that Matt made, I did want to respond quickly, is that number one, science doesn't prove things. And it's actually for the reasons you've listed that science doesn't prove things. Proof is for logic and mathematics, and how we know that logic and mathematics can prove things, I think, is a completely different discussion than what should be discussed on this stream, because it gets really abstract really, really fast. And anybody that knows what I'm talking about can attest to that. But
so
I would argue.
Go ahead. Real fast. He just said that God can't make you know something such that you can know it for certain, is what CRISPR is saying.
Okay. Yeah. Fundamentally, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I guess it's the same point I was making by pointing out that since I know everything, you either have to trust me or not. But since you don't know everything, you don't know how honest it is that I know everything.
How can we falsify your claim that you know everything?
Oh, you couldn't.
Okay, but
damn it, you guys are.
That means we could believe anything is true. Like we could believe the Bible is true because it's a
No, I'm going to point out the Bible isn't true. The Wheel of Time series is true.
Well, I agree because I saw the Wheel of Time series.
Yep. And since I know everything, you can trust me.
Okay.
So what I wanted to
sound believable to me.
What I wanted to say was that we use the reason that I personally wouldn't say that science is the only way that something can be known. I would simply argue that it's the most accurate way. The reason for that is because it doesn't make claims. It can't substantiate all, and this is obviously assuming that we're doing science the right way, is that it makes claims based off of a foundation of evidence that seems to indicate that what is being claimed has a level of accuracy and verifiability. So general relativity is true in the sense that all the observations that have been made, and not just made, but corroborated against what other people are observing, so that the people who initially observed it can see, okay, is this just kind of like something that I am experiencing or seeing, but that nobody else would? Or is there anything that I'm not correcting for or checking for? That's the peer review process of science. To me, the scientific method essentially works from an assumption that we can't know anything, but this is how we can get the closest to understanding what we all collectively observe and experience.
So I know like a couple weeks ago I agreed with you, Leo, that science doesn't prove anything, but I'd actually like to say I think there is an aspect of science that we do prove things. I would say when it comes to forensics, we can't prove anything, But if you're using the scientific method within, the empiricism, empirical science, yeah, I mean, we do. There are things that we prove. I wouldn't say science can't prove anything.
When you say prove, what particularly do you
Yeah,
mean?
Proof that we exist.
Yeah, can I add a small caveat there, because confidence levels are really important.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how would Matt define a p-value or like an r-squared value?
Let's start there. Like what
I was going to say sigma value.
How proven are we talking here?
Look, all of these are measuring roughly the same thing. What does it mean for any one of these things to be given a value in a scientific study?
Yeah, okay, let's start there. What do you think, Matt?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So we have sigma values, we have p-values, and we have r or r-squared values, which is just, r-squared is just literally taking, squaring r. What do any of these things mean in terms of a scientific study? Because scientific studies basically all give you at least one and usually all three of these. What does that mean in terms of both what they mean in particular and how that corresponds to your idea of proof in scientific studies?
So you're talking a little bit above my head.
So what he's talking about are ways in which we assign a degree of confidence to what it is that this particular scientific research is telling us. So I believe that in like physics, sigma 5, I want to say, is essentially something. I think the highest you can go is like 6. Most things in science would be considered a sigma 5 or a sigma 6, like general relativity, evolutionary theory, things like that.
Yeah, so real quick, Leo, I think a really good way of putting this, that at least it was explained to me that made a lot of sense, was like getting a vaccine for something. So if you want to get a vaccine for maybe polio, and the vaccine 99.8888% of the time is going to prevent polio, is that enough of a confidence interval for you with regard to infection for you to get the polio vaccine?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a very good analogy.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that, but I guess the issue was with proof. I mean, how do we prove that this paper right here is white and black? I mean,
I would say that we
agree on it right now. Just I asked you before.
No,
I think I have a way to put this that'll simplify it a little bit. And Matt, jump right in if I'm completely making a fool of myself and misrepresenting you. But what I think you're trying to say is, when you and I see something and we're asking, like, does that thing actually exist? And we go through our list of criteria, like, I can see it, my eyes are working, and I'm not lying to myself, and you go all the way down forever. I think because we were in the live chat, we were talking about this right before the debate, and your point was eventually mine keeps going around forever because I don't believe in a God, and you say that God has revealed to you that He's there in truth, and so you can know things, and you know that it's there, and I don't. Is that I've completely ruined that, but is that kind of what you're trying to say?
Well, what I'm trying to say, and I apologize if my answer isn't directly answering what you just asked, but what I'm trying to say is that if you remove God from the equation, you have to have all knowledge in order to know anything.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. Yeah,
that's
right.
I mean, because the things that you don't know could contradict what you think you know. So
couldn't we wait until we find that evidence? I don't understand.
What I was going to say to that is, there's no way that you can know that you've been told by God anything. For the same reason that you can't know if the thing that we're trying to determine exists.
It's the exact same reason that Matt doesn't take seriously that I know everything.
Yeah.
Is it true that you know everything, Dapper?
Yes.
It is. So what is truth?
Sure is.
You?
I can confirm.
Oh, truth is the things that I know to be true because I know everything.
It's true. He does.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Yeah.
We believe it. We saw 500 people in the desert, and he
told me that he's real. And he knows everything. So,
So you
How
cannot
be wrong.
So
we were raised in it.
You're admitting that you cannot be wrong about everything.
Oh, I can't be wrong, but I could be dishonest. Like, for instance, if maybe some prophet were running from some people who were trying to kill him, and I made him disappear to the eyes of the people who were running from him, I mean, that would be dishonest of me. But I can't be wrong because I know literally everything.
Well, you can just change their minds. It's easy.
Well, yeah, right.
So let me ask you, in your worldview, is circular reasoning, is that invalid? Is that
I choose not to answer that question. However, since I know everything, I do know the answer.
Can I respond to that? Just and like I mentioned earlier, logic works on tautological axiomatic presuppositions. An object is identical with itself. Well, I mean, I think we can all kind of realize that. Obviously a telephone is a telephone, a cat is a cat, a cup is a cup. It's tautological. It's by definition circular. You're saying X is X. That's circular. It's tautological. But it's not wrong, is it? So all of the axioms that we base our logical system on are fundamentally tautological presuppositions that can't be justified. The reason for that is things like truth and justification are, I guess in some senses, they emerge out of the system that is developed based on those axioms. So you couldn't then take those things and apply them back to the axioms. That's why they're called axioms. They have to be presupposed beforehand in order to get to what we call truth. And this is something that I've talked to actual PhD logicians on this, and this is what they say. You can't prove logic using logic because the whole concept of proof emerges out of the system that we call logic. So you can't take those emergent principles and apply them back to the axioms from which they're developed. If that makes sense. Hopefully that wasn't too technical.
Yeah, no, that made sense somewhat. I would just say, though, I mean, everything you said was basically almost like a knowledge claim, but that kind of contradicts what you were saying. And I just wanted to give those questions as food for thought. I didn't really want to go too
and I really appreciated those questions.
No, I do too.
It's really cool.
I want to say one quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Dapper.
So
Dapper
Matt,
and then Matt.
Yeah, okay. So my real quick thing is, now I'm not actually going to offer you much proof that I know everything. But my point in saying it is to point out that if your claim is the only way to have knowledge is either to be omniscient or to have an omniscient entity tell you something, unless you yourself are omniscient, then having the omniscient entity tell you something doesn't help because you have no way to demonstrate that that thing is omniscient without yourself being omniscient. So your entire claim about knowledge is self-defeating because you can't tell if I'm omniscient or not. So when I tell you something, like say, the Bible is complete nonsense, but the wheel of time is 100% literal truth, you can't prove I'm not omniscient. Therefore, your claim to the need of revelation for absolute truth in the absence of omniscience is self-defeating. So you need to come up you need to say, I don't know anything ever, no matter who tells me what, including God, or you need to come up with a lower, less lofty definition of knowledge. You got to pick one.
Yeah, the way I see it, if we're defining knowledge as absolute knowing something for 100% certain, then being omniscient is the only way to know anything.
Which is why I asked 20 minutes ago if we could all agree if we existed so we could bypass this discussion because I knew it would end here. I literally predicted it because I am actually God, and
Travis is throwing shade.
A satanic overlord.
But actually, Travis and I are the same person because we both know everything.
Eventually, honestly, as much of a meme as it is,
and I recorded it earlier and then streamed it through, and that's why you can't see his face because that would obviously defeat it.
Yeah, it would be a dead giveaway.
Yeah,
and that is perfectly irrationally consistent, and Matt and I should probably believe it because he can't disprove it.
Yeah,
I have a question though.
I'll finish up here. I'll let Joshua get on. I just wanted to say that basically, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, it happens to the best of us.
Oh, it's fine.
It happens.
You have no idea.
Anyway, it was nice talking to you guys. So I'll get on.
It's always a pleasure having
Have a great
discussion,
night, Matt. And an early Merry Christmas. I'm saying it about a day early.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you, Matt.
Merry Christmas.
Technically, it's Christmas Eve in my area. Merry Christmas Eve.
Stick around in the YouTube sphere because I very much enjoy discussions with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please do.
Oh yeah, this has been awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Okay, next Joshua's coming in. We're adding him to the stream.
That was Matt Nye, not the science guy.
I like that guy. That guy, he's.
Yeah.
I like that he's honest. He's like
Nye, the pre-sub guy.
I don't really.
I didn't. Yeah, the presupposition.
I would have asked him a couple questions, and
Yeah,
really
it's
judged
kind of a meme
awkward.
after Sci-10 from back in the day.
Well, and just really quickly, I've talked to a guy who's got. I mean, the guy had like 3 degrees, or not 3 degrees. 3 world records for the largest prime number discovered before he graduated from high school. He helped develop the internet. He studied under Richard Feynman. He's a mathematician and a logician. His name is Landon Kirtnell. He's got a Wikipedia page. You can literally look him up. I've had some discussions with him about like math and logic and stuff. You can't use logic to prove logic. Like, and even if you say, well, that's a knowledge claim. It's actually not. I can't remember how he worded it, but that's something that you can't do. It just doesn't, or because the whole thing of proof is, like I said, emergent out of the principles that are based on those axioms that you then are incapable of applying them back.
In order to have a conversation with you, we need to agree that like words have meaning, that logic is real, that you are another human with a mind, that we can't reduce everything down to solipsism. Like, we have to.
I mean, we can, but then nothing gets done.
Yeah, I know, and it's like that's why like I asked that question 20 minutes ago, and I was like, I knew this guy is going to go here. I absolutely read his mind. I didn't. Really.
Well, I knew it too because, of course, we're both omniscient.
The way I've always put it is,
I want to comment.
You or me?
I want to comment really quickly. I don't think that he was a solipsist in that my mind is the only one that exists, so much as he was just a presuppositionalist. You can't do logic and reasoning without some, as Darth Dawkins, who I'm sure we've all heard of, says, that metaphysically primary thing there that prescribes it to reality, which is a misconception of things like math and logic and the laws of nature. They think that they're written into the universe and they tell it how to work. That's not what they are. They're the ways that we have described how the reality that we exist in works from the best observations that we made. And we've even observed that they can break down, like for instance, general relativity can violate the law of conservation of energy to some degree. The law of causality, which was never a law to begin with, is violated expressly at the quantum level of reality. There's numerous different laws of reality that actually don't apply universally. And that's not because they're broken. It's because what we call the laws are just humans' abstract descriptions of the consistencies that we have at least thus far observed in reality. They're not prescribed to it. They don't tell it how to work. They describe how we watch it work to the best of our ability.
All right, guys, real quick. I'm going to have to get out of here pretty soon because I'm just... I didn't sleep last night, and it's late, and like...
You mean you went to bed really late?
No, I didn't. I didn't sleep last night.
What?
In the last...
I didn't either.
In the last about 50 hours, I've had about 10 hours of sleep total.
Oh, Lord.
Gang.
Well,
What homework have you been doing?
No sleep, gang.
Yeah, so I got to get out of here. But what I want to do, what I want to say before we go is, Erika, we need to find a couple of people to have a transitional forms don't exist debate. Because we could just bring an encyclopedia of transitional forms. So
Dude,
that'd be the best thing ever.
Dude, there's not to humble brag. There's not a soul on YouTube who can match the Mesozoic and also Oligocene upward know-how that we have of the transitional forms. So.
Yeah, between the two of us, we have what, like 2/3 of the Phanerozoic just straight covered, and a little bit extra beyond that because we have access to Jackson Wheat and R.J. Downard. So, I mean, like...
And Aaron Ra, who diagnosed his philosophy, or his phylogeny.
It would just be an absolute annihilation, and I want to do it because I just want to have an easy debate where I'm just like, hey, look, here's a list of 50 transitionals just between non-avian and avian dinosaurs, and here's Erika with a list of like 400 transitionals between gosh darn, like, I don't know, Dimetrodon and humans.
Yeah, dude, we're starting with the proto mammal. Yeah. We don't stop when we reach Homo sapiens.
Every synapse ever.
So we gotta find some opponents for that. Just because I feel like I'm in the mood to just absolutely lay a smackdown on someone, and like, because like having a nice polite chat with Sal is great and all, but every once in a while I just want to be like, here are 500 lists of why you're an idiot.
Now you know
Sometimes-
why I
sometimes you
wanted
need
to.
some junk food debates.
Now you know
guys-
why I want to have a discussion with John Maddox on physics.
Have you guys really
Yeah.
delved into street epistemology? Have you heard that term?
Yes,
Yeah,
I have.
know. Yeah.
Because
I
that,
have my
think,
opinions on it. Though.
That I think is the key to the creationist debate. I don't think we can convince them.
In the long run, maybe. But
in the long run,
wanna
yes.
I just want to have a fun thing where I can just list off
I know,
dozens
but
and
then,
dozens of
but
reasons.
I would
why
rather
you're an
You need
idiot.
to run over your
make
fundamentals.
a
you know?
lecture of all that and
I know.
just
Real
talk about real evolution because there is nothing to debate. Like
No,
they are just
Really quickly, Erica, can you make me a mod so I can drop the link to my channel for
Yeah,
somebody in the chat,
that's
or
what I
put
was
it in the description, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, no, I'll make you a mod anyways. But yeah, that's actually what I was going to say. Quick pause because Leo does have a channel. It's Leophilius, and I'm about to drop it in the side chat.
YouTube.com//Leophilius spelled the way on the screen.
That's the
go.
one.
10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We've got like what 7 days. Let's get it,
We're
people.
gonna
I'm at like
get-
200.
I
Erica,
Smash
does that
subscribe,
sound like
dude.
something we should actually try to arrange?
Yeah, let's do it. I'd be down.
All right.
I don't know who we debate, but we could try it.
I mean, I can think of a few people who would probably maintain there's no transitionals in the.
I know
fossil
someone
record.
who probably thinks that.
All right, but I'm out
His
of here.
name
I'm gonna
is,
go. I'm gonna
Ken
go. No.
Hi, Dapper. It's like-
Hovind refused my and Erica's last debate challenge with him.
He wanted to dox us, my guys. It was
Yeah.
not.
Oh,
Yeah.
hold up! I need to hear this story.
Oh, it's on my channel. There's a video called Kent Hovind is a Coward, and I'll just sum it up real quick. I called Kent Hovind to schedule another debate with myself and Erica because he's debated each of us independently, right?
Mhm.
And I got a response back, not from him, but from his secretary, saying, "Oh, hey, in order to do this, we're going to need your full name, where you went to school, and a current reasonable picture of you. If you're not, and we prefer that you be on camera, but we're not going to demand it." And I was just like,
No.
"No, pass." And then I made, with Erica's help, of
Need
course.
your home
I mean,
address,
Erica-
and your social security.
yeah, Erica and I went back and forth in a pre-scripted, response that we both worked on my channel called "Kent Hovind is a Coward," and
So-
yeah.
Yeah, so the thing about that,
Well, that's
also
unfortunate.
I know you got to go, Dapper, but about that too, like the situation with that was he has previously doxed people and
Yeah.
had his kind of ilk go after them. This happened to the late Bill Ludlow. So
Yeah, Bill Ludlow had
Definitely we're not in-
fraudulent copyright claims made against his music promotion company because that was how he
Definitely
made. That
we're
was his
not
day
in.
job. He was a music promoter, and so he was involved in multiple. Or I think there was like a local and a federal lawsuit both filed by the same guy, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that because I talked about it to Bill like once or twice, and I don't remember all the details. But yeah, he was involved in a lengthy legal battle over the copyright to his claim. And eventually what he ended up doing was just sending dated documents about when he had started using it, because prior use is basically the I win button in copyright cases is prior use.
Yep.
And he eventually sent that to this guy's lawyer, and that guy like dropped that guy and was like, "No, I can no longer represent you in this case because this guy wins." But yeah, it was a thing. So had there not, even if there hadn't been those things, but the fact that he wanted all that information and the fact that there has been prior incidences of people who have gone against Kent Hovind being targeted for legal harassment by Kent Hovind's followers was like, no, I'm not going to let you dox me.
Yeah,
as a
that's,
side note,
That's
Dapper,
ridiculous, man.
before-
I'm sorry. That's absolutely ridiculous.
It's
What's up,
wild.
Hey, how you guys
Hey,
doing?
Josh.
How's it going, Joshua? Josh.
I see your very
I'm-
positive reaction.
I didn't get to say bye to the good old
he left.
dino that's
Oh,
just so dapper.
I
You went
think he was
extinct.
oh god, this guy's talking.
It's fine.
now.
Goodbye.
Okay, well, what I was going to say was El Spaghetto
I didn't even get to tell him I love him.
for $5 and said, when is the Gutsy Gibbon Dapper Dino versus Kent Hovind and Ray Comfort debate?
Oh,
Oh,
that's
only in my dreams.
I know, really. And then also we got a super chat from Stupid War Energy. She has left our presence, unfortunately. She's going to play video game, but wants to let us intellectuals know and thank us for not letting YouTube be overrun with pseudoscience. You are appreciated. So
Yeah, the one thing about pseudoscience that I wanted to say, because I've been seeing it more and more recently on like Facebook and Twitter and things, and I'm glad that hopefully we get a stimulus check so I can get an iPad so that I can actually like, do doodles and stuff, because that's what's holding me back from doing so much content. And I don't want to like get too like off topic, but it's one thing, and I'm just going to mention as a whole subject. quantum mechanics seems to be getting misrepresented by so many people who have no clue what
Yep.
they're talking about. And I've coined a new phrase because of that, and that is quantum mechanics is not magic. It's just math.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Really,
But
really
the
hard.
thing that oh, sorry.
no, please go ahead.
Go ahead. I interrupted you. You go, and after I'll come in next.
Oh, dude, I was just gonna dox my fiance who showed up in the chat a couple minutes ago and was like being a dork, and so I was gonna put him on blast in front of the entire audience because Slam RN came to my rescue and was like, "Dude, you can't hit on her. You know she's engaged." And then I was like, "That actually is I'm engaged." I was like, "That's the one." So I thought I would just put him.
Oh yeah, I know who
You're
it
not
is.
like a bonobo though, right?
Yeah, he's a giant idiot dork. So I hope he's still here and can hear me insulting him. But please, Josh,
Giant
go.
penis.
No, I completely agree with Leophilus. I hope
Leophilius. You can just call me Leo, though.
Twice in a row.
No. I really need to get that down pat. Leophilius.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I completely agree with you because I get into debates myself with other Christians and stuff, and what I always hear is quantum indeterminacy. And they keep trying to bring in quantum indeterminacy into how that kind of shows that God is a real entity because of this.
Yep.
And for me, because obviously I'm not a quantum physicist, so I can't necessarily delve into that said information with the individual. So I would love to have conversations with people who have that kind of knowledge, you know?
That's gonna be Leo all day.
Yeah, what I can say is I have never been to college for this. I don't know anything, but I've read quite a few books on it written by reputable professionals, people like Sean Carroll, Leonard Susskind, one of the co-founders of string theory, David Griffiths, who's, I believe, a professor emeritus at Reed College. I've watched lectures from people like Leonard Susskind. Who's the other one? He had the great courses on quantum mechanics. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I am by no means a professional in those fields. But what I will tell people is I do have an understanding of the math that underlies a lot of the concepts, and that math is where those concepts originate. So to better understand those concepts, being able to understand a math is really going to help because, like I said, that's the origin of those concepts.
Interesting. Okay, that's awesome. Because for me, I'm sort of in. I'm with. I don't know if you guys know the empathetic atheist.
I've heard of that. Yes.
Yeah. So
Heard of
I
it as
work with them in a sense,
Okay.
and I am their anthropologist and
cool.
archaeologist in a sense.
Really?
That's pretty cool.
I try to have conversations with theists based on that because for me, in the anthropological state,
I love that.
Look at the cultural aspect of religion that came from the past. And what we constantly see is that religion is a deduction of other religions prior to it. So they always love to take aspects of the prior religions, bring them into the now former religion, and then they tweak it in order for it to be different. But at the same exact time, they're able to get adherence from those who are from the older religions.
Yeah.
So that is the thing that, for me, I find so interesting is the human mind in itself and the conceptions that humans have to begin with. Go ahead. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
No. Please ask your question.
Oh no. I was gonna ask, are you just supremely interested in this concept of like archetypical stories that humans tend to adopt and share across cultures, that they seem almost ubiquitous to the human mind, where we're just like, the hero's journey. We all love the hero's journey. And it's just like, it's in every culture.
That's it. Like that's
has
why
an Odyssey.
Okay,
exactly.
That explains one thing, and this explains the other. You see these books? The belief
the belief
instinct.
instinct.
Breaking the Spell is one I haven't read it, but I've heard of that.
Very
Yes.
So
good. Very good
it
book.
basically gives a scientific framework where we can scientifically understand how religious belief happens in people, right? So like if we're actually atheists, we have to explain why people are confident in beliefs that don't make any sense. And that's really the only question everyone should be talking about. Because even the Christians have to justify why people are believing in 5,000 other religions that don't make any sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
And until they have a way that justifies that, other than demons are deluding them or something, which is literally the only argument they have.
I got that a couple
I
of
mean,
times.
literally, you go anywhere. You go to the Inuits. They have a goddess under the sea sending out seals so they can be hunted, right? Literally, you're creating gods that define your environment based on the food types you're trying to access, the things you want in your life. I mean, and then you add in confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance and groupthink, and like how you have to trust like your group. You have to trust people in order to survive. So like cooperation is a key part of humanity. But if someone lies, there's not a great way to figure out that is a lie.
So
and once you create like a unfalsifiable concept that can only be falsified after death, then you've created a self-sustaining meme that will keep propagating.
Yeah.
Because they can't.
Go ahead. You go first, Josh. Go ahead.
The one thing, because I do agree with the certain aspects of what you're saying, but the thing is that religion was created to try to understand the world that we live in. That's the first reason why religions actually came about, is because for us, we didn't have the tools that we do now. So hence, when we are looking at the progress of just the ideological conception of what a religion is, we slowly start to see the pieces coming together that these are based on trying to understand the world. So when you're looking at, let's just say, a flood that comes in, to you, this flood is completely and absolutely something that's unimaginable. Your mind can't understand it. Henceforth, you start putting, and that's why we believed in spirits before we believed in paganism, and after we believed in paganism before we believed in monotheism. And even if you go further back from the spirits, what do we believe? We believed in animism and ancestor worship. So all these.
I want to touch on that and elaborate on that because I think that's really interesting. I've said this before. Folks on this channel probably know this about me, but I picked up a minor in my undergraduate degree in anthropology, and that's kind of what inspired me to go for the primatology route, because it's this nice merging of anthropology and biology together. But for that, I had to take a cultural anth course. I took Egyptology, and Egyptology is one of the very few cultures that lacks a flood myth, because they don't see the flooding of the Nile, the inundation. They don't see this as this catastrophic force. This is the life-giving force.
Exactly.
So first of all, have a
what happens every year?
The flood destroys everything. This is the cool thing that happens every year, right?
Yeah.
And,
It's not really
so
surprising anymore. It's routine.
Yeah, and under that lens, it makes perfect sense. I mean, they've got a big monolithic structure that attacks the inundations every year. They know it's coming. They rely on it to water their crops. And it's really interesting that of all the Mesopotamian religions that are hanging around there, and I've said this many times before as well, but it's not the science that made me more of an agnostic person. It was looking into some of this ancient Near Eastern stuff that all of a sudden started ringing very true, of people doing people things and people telling people stories. And you've got this Mesopotamian transfer of culture where all of them have flood myths, except for the ones that like the flooding, which are like, no, that's not for us. We're into it.
What kind of people would care about floods? Agriculturalists.
Yeah.
Exactly. You hit the nail right on the head right there. And the thing is that also, because one of my because I work more with Homo erectus than with other types of hominids.
As you would, because they're the first culture bearers, so to speak.
Exactly. And they're actually the first ones. some people say they're the first ones to actually spread outside of Africa and stuff like that into Eurasia and into Europe and into even the Malaysian islands, which is very interesting.
So the only bit with that is that recently there's been some really interesting work with Homo floresiensis and Homo lucenensis, the dwarf populations, the hobbits, so to speak, that lived in Flores and over in the Indonesian Isles. And interestingly enough, it's looking that they share a more close relationship with Homo habilis, which actually was contemporaneous at times with Homo erectus. So you've almost got this idea. And this is total speculation on my part, but you've almost got this idea where it's like Homo erectus is spreading out. And Homo habilis is like, well, you know, we're doing our thing, we're minding our own business, but they're all in East Africa and in South Africa. So you get a group of Homo habilis that haplessly ends up incidentally rafting to the very close Indonesian islands. And you've got a founder effect, which, you know, no surprise. I guarantee you, when we sequence their genetics from the molars and things like that we have, we'll find them to be relatively inbred because they're all isolated on this little bitty island.
That's it. Exactly.
And one thing that I think you guys will really appreciate it, and I can't stay for too much longer. I'm going to have to close down the stream probably in about 10 minutes, if that's okay with everyone, at the 2-hour mark. But one thing I think you guys will find interesting is that Homo floresiensis is a very interesting hominin. In Flores, they have this myth. The people of Flores today have this myth called the Ibu Gogo, where they're like, yeah, dude, we've got these crazy little creatures, like they gibber and talk to one another, but it sounds kind of like chattering. They try to imitate human language and they steal babies, and they're scary and they're small and they have these long pendulous breasts and these weird wide faces and these big eyes. And a couple of anthropologists have kind of looked at that and they're like, okay, so we know that humans arrived there relatively recently, 10 to 30,000 years ago, and we don't really have a maximum, an age for sure extinction date for all of the populations of Homo floresiensis. So is it possible that what we're actually seeing is like these guys just retaining what they've actually seen, which is, yeah, you've got contemporaneous cohabitation essentially with two hominin species, humans and Homo floresiensis, and they're like, who are these small dudes who are living on our island and like talking to each other and like approaching us and, you know, being all hominin and too much like us? And so there are a couple of folks who think that maybe that might be this cultural remnant of a hominin species that once was, which is really interesting because that's classic people, right? We're like, dude, there's no way they're people. Like they got to be some kind of weird cryptid. Like,
no, you're absolutely right, and that's the thing that really interests me because it kind of shows that there were other hominids around, or hypothetically, there were other hominids around during the time of Homo sapiens sapien, or Homo sapien. And that in itself is so interesting to find out. Like, dude, there's something that my teacher once told me, which was very interesting, or my professor, I should state. He stated that humans didn't come up with religion, they actually learned it from the Neanderthals. That Neanderthals were the first ones who came up with the animist conceptualization. And then humans later on adapted that into their culture.
Yeah, there's no telling because we know Homo erectus was out there using fire, and with fire comes in a huge advent of protection because you can create this home base and you can take your food back to the home base and keep everyone there. You move as a group, as a troop, if you will. And you can migrate out and have this security that at nighttime when you're sleeping, a big mean hyena isn't going to come and eat all your babies because you've got this scary, like, flickering light that's always around. And
wait, how far back is fire knowledge? Like, I thought it was 500,000 years or so.
A lot further back.
Yeah.
2 million?
Yeah, about 2 million. 1.8 to 2, because what you're looking at is Homo erectus groups.
I don't think humans needed to use fire to cook meat. Like they could have eaten it raw.
They could.
And they lived in. So it was a coldish Africa, right? But
so it depends because with hominins, what you see is after you get the advent of fire in Homo erectus, you start to see an even faster shrinkage of the jaws. The reason we can afford to shrink these jaws is because we're eating food, which is softer, it's less tough.
What were we eating?
we were eating cooked meat. Once you reach Homo erectus, you can cook that meat, get a higher caloric intake. And interestingly enough, we also see the brain case continue to just explode in size once meat is introduced to the diet.
Yeah, but we could also explain that through using percussion techniques to bash open bones and access marrow. We could have greater access to. I mean, we became bipedal. We became persistent runners. We learned how to throw, so we became like apex predators.
I mean, it's very difficult when you're looking at this because there are a lot of hypotheses and theorems that go along with that. So, like, yes, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of like our bipedalism is something that really does help us and really does have an effect on human history, or not even just human history, hominid history.
We got on 2 feet early. 7 million years ago, we're already walking around on 2 feet. Like we've been on 2 feet for longer than we've been smart by a large margin.
Yeah, but we were still in the trees.
Kind of.
Like we were.
It's like semi. We were semi in trees, semi on ground. So
like, we were like we were leaving the trees, going into the grasslands.
So if you look at the Australopithecines, which are 3-ish, 4-ish million years ago, you're definitely on the ground walking on 2 feet. At the very least, habitually, certainly meaning more.
What kind of calories were you acquiring then?
At the time of Australopithecus afarensis and africanus, we're probably looking at an opportunistic scavenger, but based off of what we know about chimps and bonobos today,
so a carnivore
included omnivory, heavy omnivory.
Yeah. What kind of plant foods would they be eating on the grasslands?
Oh man, tubers, shoots, a lot of different fruits.
Most tubers are toxic. Would they cook them?
I don't imagine that they would eat the toxic tubers because afarensis and africanus did not master fire, to our knowledge.
Right. Yeah. So like, what other plant sources would they have access to?
The great number of fruits that populates the African savanna at varying points during the year, depending on whether you're in the rainy season or the dry season, would essentially. There's this interesting thing with gorillas, and I realize this feels kind of off topic, but I promise it's relevant.
I love it.
Yeah. So there's this interesting thing with gorillas.
This is my actual expertise.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Then you can either corroborate me or roast me on this. But there's this interesting thing with gorillas, and some populations of gorillas. I can't remember if it's lowland versus mountain, which is which on this one because I've had a couple of glasses of wine. But you've got a single population of gorillas that is primarily based in frugivory, and they rely on this frugivory when the seasonality is good, and then when the seasonality is bad, they revert to the shoots and tubers.
Right. It's lower nutritional quality foods, right?
Right. And so the idea was that, okay, what we're dealing with is like, and when people were first looking at gorilla teeth, they saw these big shearing planes on these massive honking canine teeth, and they were like, holy cow, these gorillas have to spend all day eating these shoots and tubers. It takes them forever. They're eating grass. It must suck. And why would they evolve to do that? And then once they observed, and this was true for the mountain and the lowland gorillas, although it varied because each habitat has longer and shorter periods of fruit seasonality. Every single time that they were able to exploit a fruit resource, which is higher in sugars and carbohydrates, so it's a better energy source for these gorillas, man, they tossed that grass to the side like it was nothing. They instantly went for that fruit because higher caloric benefit is always going to be better if you're any kind of animal, so long as you can digest it. So the thinking is that with these early hominins, you're dealing with the gracile and the robust Australopithecines. So you've got the Australopithecines like Afarensis africanus sediba and anamensis, and then you've got the paranthropines like Boisei, robustus, and Aethiopicus. And these paranthropines are mostly relying on the robust foods like nuts, hard shit that's hard to eat, like tubers that require a whole lot of chewing. And you know this because they've got these big honking megadont molars. Their molars are, I kid you not, they're like that big around, and they're smaller than us.
Oh, robustus? Yeah. They were huge, right? Yeah. They were like much larger gorilla, almost, like larger than gorillas, right?
Well, small. No, that's an interesting thing because they're smaller than us and they're smaller than gorillas, but they've got bigger teeth than both of us combined as far as the molars go.
So we're thinking that they were like nearly herbivorous, and of course they went extinct, right? And there's no like modern lineage of their thing. Yeah,
these dudes are.
There's a funny video of Michael Eads where he's like, "Yeah, the poor robustus like died off." And it's like, I wonder why.
Yeah, and it's like this dude is spending look at this dude. He's spending all his time like sitting around and chewing nuts and tubers, which you can see from the pitting on their arms. So one of my human evolution professors is Peter Unger. He specializes in tooth microwear. And yeah, dude, these paranthropoids are spending all their time doing basically the gorilla lifestyle, but instead of when fruits are available, they're getting outcompeted by all these gracile australopithecines. So the gracile australopithecines aren't just exploiting the leaves and the tubers, they're exploiting the fruits when they're available, and most importantly, they're capable of, as a group, chasing off large bands of carnivores in order to steal their kills and add to their diet a healthy amount of meat. And the way that we know this is because as early as Homo habilis, we find tooth and cut marks in the bones that we find near them, which is obviously a big deal. Because they're finding this stuff and they're going and they're scraping it all.
And we have records back to 2.3 million years for that, right?
Yes, yeah. So you're looking at
in Ethiopia.
Huge lifestyle change where they're just like, yeah, dude, eating meat is dope and it makes our brains big and we love it. And plus,
so my question is, why, if you made the argument that nutritional density and quality matters, why wouldn't they have always been trying to get as much meat as possible? And if they could access as much as they needed to survive, would they have needed to eat plants? Now, that's a very basic question, right?
So that's a really interesting thing, because the common ancestor of the australopithecines, it's looking like, and the paranthropines as well, like going back decently far, is going to be Ardipithecus ramidus. Now, Ardipithecus ramidus is really interesting in the fact that they're monomorphic, which is really, really unusual for great apes. When I say monomorphic, I mean males and females are indistinguishable from one another. They're the same. They've got the same tooth size. And what that generally suggests is that we're seeing some kind of pair bonding. Now, when we look to pair bonding in the current age, we look to the gibbons and we look to the TD monkeys and the marmosets and whatever, but mostly the gibbons because they're apes. They're lesser apes, but they're apes. And they form these male-female tight-knit unions. And what they do is every morning, these dudes get up, they climb to the top of the tree, and they sing these very beautiful and very threatening duets where they're like, no one come and mess with us. This is our territory. We'll beat the crap out of you if you show up. And this is true for males on males, this is true for males on females, and this is true for the team of them versus other teams. So the idea is essentially that you've got Ardipithecus ramidus forming these tight-knit but small groups. Now, a small group of Ardipithecus ramidus is not going to be able to chase away a group of hyenas from their kill. But a large group of Australopithecines who are 10, 20-fold, because they're in these large troops that are polygamous in nature, is capable of all picking up a rock and throwing them at these hyenas or these Dinofelis until they ditch. They're out of it.
Or escaping on trees, or creating shelters of like primitive boma, something like that.
You go from relative to heavy sociality. At least if modern analogs are.
And you could also retreat into the caves, and you could use your superior intellect. Yeah. So my question is did our superior intellect evolve because we had access to all these fat calories that were coming from marrow and brain casings?
Maybe.
And so a big thing that is often lost in the community is that the megafauna populations were gargantuan in the past.
Huge.
And we can't even imagine what it was like. So they were like these massive grasslands full of mammoths and elephants and all sorts of ruminant, herbivores. And there was a very healthy carnivore species also. So that whole scavenger argument, like you could argue that like those people were trying to get as much of that meat as possible. And on a grassland environment, there might not be a lot of other plants to eat because you're also competing with the herbivores, right? So you would have to become very intimate with the land. You would have to learn your knowledge. You would have to remember where you are. And even herbivores have all this knowledge too. And they travel, through the earths. They find the freshest grass. So you're competing with extremely, smart animals that have evolved into their niche, and the calories are everywhere, and you're trying to compete with everything. So, so just so you guys understand me, I've been in the carnivore diet movement for like the last 3 years. I'm a moderator of the Reddit Keto Science subreddit. I've got a bookshelf of like 40 or 50 books here. I've read most of them. And I've been posting at Keto Science for 3 years. I literally follow like 9,000 and all sorts of nutrition people on Twitter, and I look for all sorts of stuff and post it on Keto Science. And
I'll tell you this.
What?
I'll tell you this. While I think that the vegetarian, I wouldn't go so far even to say vegan, but I think the vegetarian movement has a good deal with the whole climate change aspect. Like, it's good to, that we have a huge carbon footprint with regard to all our agriculture. With regard though to what did humans, the species, evolve to eat, there is absolutely no denying, anthropologically speaking, that we've got a monogastric, very omnivorous diet, right? Is much more heavily invested in meat than pretty much any other primate.
Chimps being 6% monkeys, basically, and doikers, right?
Yeah, I mean the bonobos the bonobos and the chimps, every opportunity they get, they're going out. And
I've seen a bonobo hunting video. Some guy posted it on Twitter, and then he removed it like a couple weeks later.
They're intense.
That shit was vicious. They just pull it apart, and they're like, they share it all.
Yeah,
up,
and they trap it.
Yep.
That's the thing. They make noise in order for it to move in a certain direction, while all the rest kind of encircle it, so that there's no way for it to escape. It's fantastic.
It's
like clever your cooperation. It's like, if that was the Luca, like, why can't we keep evolving that kind of,
Man, I want that lab grown meat, baby, because I love my omnivorous diet, and I try to eat a little less meat than normal just because it's it's bad for the climate. But I do want that. I do think that the ideal human diet does include decent amounts of meat. I mean, we do
Definitely.
well. But listen, guys, it's really late here, so I gotta end this stream. Does anyone have any last? What is it, Leo? Final memes?
It's the meme hour.
Final memes. What?
Anybody got?
I don't have any memes. Just
I've got one.
Subscribe-
Game of the year.
Subscribe to my
Ancestors,
channel
A
if you
Humankind
haven't.
Odyssey.
Who's hosting the next live stream now?
Yeah, dude, I think it'll be
Leo,
really fun.
why don't you just click the button?
Ooh.
What?
This has been really awesome.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
I've been nervous this whole time because I wasn't expecting to talk to people today.
Oh my god,
No, dude, you're freaking awesome, dude. No
Yeah,
worry
dude.
about
I
that.
wouldn't be too worried either about like people judging you. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
it's also been refreshing. It's also been
of us.
quite refreshing because I mentioned before, I go to a Christian. I go to a Christian high school.
I understand.
And
Sucks, right?
I've been an atheist for a year.
Oh,
And the only person that I know for certain is also an atheist is my sister.
really? How old is she?
15, 2 years younger than me.
Oof, that's
And you're
cool.
17. So you're
You guys raised in a religious household?
oh,
Yeah. I actually, the only people that I'm reasonably certain probably don't know still are my parents.
Yeah, fuck them.
That's an interesting deal, right? That's a tough topic to broach, where it's kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, so
My dad's a smart guy, but every now and then I'll hear him talking. He'll be like, the problem with this old Earth theory is they assume there's no God, and he says stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah.
Breathe in.
I'm just gonna ignore that.
The problem with this old Earth theory is that it's a theory because it has a bunch of evidence that indicates the level of the truth that it has.
Yeah,
BioWolf. Check out
Exactly,
Shooter if you want to have good combos.
yeah.
with him.
He's
Hey,
smart, but when he talks about science, he's like,
El Spaghetto said their final meme is going to be that they're very proud of you, Joshua, for talking to random people. So there's
Thank
their
you
final
so
meme.
much, guys. Much appreciated. I love being on here. For me, I think that if you are I don't want to say the smartest person in the room, but if you're in a room where there's not much going on, that you got to change rooms and go into a room where when people are talking, you're kind of like, wow, I'm learning something. And that's what I love.
I've definitely
the
learned a lot
entire
right
thing.
now.
Absolutely.
How much did you guys learn during the creation debate, though? Like, I didn't learn anything except
During the
from
debate itself.
when she was, I was actually playing Call of Duty, and then I was like, I'll check YouTube. Something's live, and it popped up. And I'm like, oh, nice. There's a lecture, these slides, all these transitional forms. It makes so much sense. And then, I was like, oh, the Christians.
Oh, baby, listen.
It was fun. It was fun when the prediction slide came up, and then when John and Otangelo, yeah. I knew it had an O in it.
Yeah.
When they started talking, I was just a little bit
like, God, Leo.
I just wanted to say, Erika, you had one of the best straight fucking mic drop intros I've ever seen in a debate. Like, no, let me be honest here. That mic was dropped so hard that I don't think the world's greatest team of archaeologists with the world's finest and most advanced equipment are going to be capable of locating it.
Dude, I was getting madder and madder as I was going through the whole thing. I was like, man, I can't believe we're having this conversation. Like, I can't believe that this is, and I'm getting more and more worked up. And then at the very end, I just astrally project to the core of the earth and just erupt.
Well, I can kind of see that because as you're going along, I'm just like, she's getting like way more succinct and way more like, yeah, this is what we know. If you disagree, I mean, you're kind of dumb. So I don't.
Yeah, dude, the thing is you got to put up or shut up. Like, if your model has no predictions, and worse than that, if your model makes no predictions that are correct, it's not a model. And before we go, quickly, Slade Camara said, before you go, I want to hear what you guys thought of my question about how the Bible talks about people being knitted together in the womb and how they require these instructions. I remember that super chat. I'm a couple of glasses of wine deep, but I do remember that super chat, and my opinion at the time was relatively coherent, and it was really interesting to me that this is something that is taken as being metaphorical by most creationists, right? Like, God isn't literally getting down with his needles and he's like knitting together a person in their womb. It's understood by most creationists to be metaphorical. And I think it's really interesting that is the case, because they're indeed very selective in what they consider to be metaphorical and what they consider to be literal. You reach the likes of Sigart or John Walton, perhaps, who are theistic evolutionists, who are like, nah, dude, if you're taking Genesis literally, then you're not interpreting the language or the culture correctly, which is why I'm of the opinion, and I don't know how everyone else feels about this, but I'm firmly of the opinion that you can accept conventional science and be religious. These are things that can go hand in hand. The problem shows up when you are like a young Earth creationist and you're actively rejecting the aspects of science that corroborate one another through multiple fields. But that's my thinking. Anyone else want to add something before we head out of here?
I do. Number one, if you are still with us and you are enjoying, there's how many people there, if I could click the tab, 50 to 57 according to my count. If you have enjoyed the content you've seen on this stream, consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm sure Erika would really appreciate it.
Yes.
Love that.
This channel needs to hit another 5K by the end of the year, so let's go, folks. Let's spread it. I put the link to my channel in the private chat. I don't know if Erika wants to drop that in the YouTube chat for everybody, because I can't post it.
You're live now, Leo.
I am? Okay, awesome. So if you like the things that I say, because apparently there's some people that say that I have a tendency to say, something that makes sense every now and then, consider subscribing to my channel, which I put the link for it in the site chat, youtube.com/C/Leophilius. I focus mainly on like astrophysics, cosmology, quantum mechanics, talking about those things, explaining those things in a way that people can understand, as well as busting creationism and intelligent design, because those are not scientific.
Yeah.
I love it.
Eventually, I'll get around
You
to
got a
doing
subscriber from me, my friend. That's for sure.
Awesome. 10,000 by the end of the year. We got 7 days. People, we can do it.
I'm number 215. Don't forget me.
Does anyone else want to plug their channel or their socials before we head out?
Ask me in like a year when I'm actually making YouTube videos.
Let us know. We'll shill for you. Let us know.
Erika, I love those 10 minutes we had, like, where we were just zoning out about science. Can we do like a 2-hour thing sometime, like in the next 2 weeks?
Email me, Travis, gutsygibbon@gmail.com, because I would love to do that. I'd be very interested in talking about
I'm pretty like I'm a believer about the carnivore diet, but I also have cookies in front of me. So it's like I'm not talking about it. So like, you know, I'm getting bigger, you know, like
carnivore.
all right,
I'm
so
omnivore bus, Travis.
so
Let's
so
hash it out.
my idea is like carnivore feels optimal, and I'm trying to explain it scientifically. And you know, I'm asking those questions, right? So I want to involve the scientific community. I want to figure out if we can see if there are genomic differences between chimpanzees and humans to see if humans evolve different traits that help them digest meat better or assimilate B12
Yeah, dude. Let's do
or
it.
have higher stomach acid, you know,
Yeah, I'd
or
watch
like
that.
lower stomach acid. Like those are questions I have been trying to answer and no one is asking them. And the primatology community seems like not aware of like the nutritional side, where like we're saying like, hey, like we're reversing diabetes. We're like, you know, like cancer feeds off sugar, and we're not eating sugar anymore. So like, think about it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have the chat again. Shoot me an email. It's in my about section, but
Okay,
also,
yeah, I followed you on all your stuff.
yeah. We'll be good. We'll set something up because God knows I'm sitting around this holiday. So who isn't? Joshua and Beowulf. Any socials you want to plug before we head out of here?
Can I plug my SoundCloud?
Plug your SoundCloud, baby. Plug the SoundCloud.
And your mixtape.
Plug the SoundCloud.
It's Beowulf on
OnlyFans.
SoundCloud, guys.
No, make a
Smash
Twitter.
follow.
Do you have a Reddit account?
I do.
Good. Like, be that person.
I don't really do much with it.
Well, you should.
Josh?
Like, we're all crazy Redditors, right? Erika, you're a crazy Redditor?
I am, yeah.
I check it every single day. I'm subscribed to 200 subreddits. I like moderate like 25 subreddits. I've been like creating them. Like every time I think of a new idea, I'm like, yeah, I'll just make a subreddit. And then I like linked up it.
Yeah, I wanted to say too, because Mank Deems is in the side, which is of course the dank memes guy. Mank Deems is actually my favorite for the meme of the evening, which was Matt and I, the guy, which I just very surreal, very fun. We lost Josh. Okay, Josh, I wanted you to plug your socials, but okay, Beowulf doesn't have any socials except for his SoundCloud. Travis is plugged, Leo's plugged, and with that, guys. We are going to close this after show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching on Modern Day Debate. Do the like, comment, subscribe thing if you feel like it. But you know what? If you don't feel obligated to do that either. Side note: Cloud of Time for $10 chat that says, "Are you independently wealthy? If not, I will give you money because I support you." Cloud of Time, that is very sweet. I'm doing okay for myself right now, mostly because of you guys here on YouTube. And so thank you for everyone for being here. Excellent evening. Yeah, Leo's dabbing. He's getting banned. He's getting banned for that, actually. But he's dabbing.
That is what it is.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays. And I hope to be back with more after shows like this more frequently, as well as more videos discussing the likes of primatology, paleontology, etc. So please take care of yourselves and good night.
Good night.